right, thank you so much. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for engaging in that. I will now request us to kindly get back to our seats. I will now kindly request us to get back to our seats. You know, I would be very curious to hear some of the solutions or the key things that you would be able to solve, but because of time, we are going to move on to the next session. Let's kindly settle in. Amazing, thank you so much. I think from that discussion that we just had, if we're able to put it practically right now, right about now, we would have no problem in the world. But we keep pushing and having symposiums like this that drive policies, and from policy to paper and paper to the people and vice versa. So we're going to continue the next panel discussion, and we are going to welcome back Mr. Anders Thompson to be able to introduce the next panel. I'll kindly request us to engage. For our online people, or rather the people joining us, colleagues joining us on Zoom platform, kindly engage with us. You can comment, you can chat, and you can also ask any questions. We're going to take some questions also from the online session, so feel free to be a part of these as much as the people who are standing here and seated here with us. So over to you. Let's put our hands together for Mr. Anders as he continues to introduce the panel discussion. Let's put our hands together for Mr. Anders. I introduce them? Oh, okay. Okay, that's okay. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my singular honor. Let me get the panelists, and then we are going to get right into it. All right. So the next session for opening panel discussion is titled Consolidation and Strategic Partnership, Leveraging CRVS System Scale-Up for Gender Equality and Women's Empowerment. And this discussion brings together thought leaders and practitioners who are driving real transformation, connecting civil registration and vital statistic systems to the broader goals of gender equality, social inclusion, and sustainable development. Their insights are going to help us explore what it takes to scale up CRVS systems in a way that truly delivers for women, children, and communities everywhere. We are going to begin with our virtual presentation, followed by the distinguished panelists who are with us here in the room. Please note that we'll also have Q&A even for the people in the room. We are going to take only 2 questions, guided by our moderator, so keep your reflections ready, and let's get started. The first speaker is Dr. Anju Malhotra, who has a pre-recorded video. We're going to watch that. And then he is the Gender and Measurement Lead at the Global Financing Facility for Women, Children and Adolescents, World Bank Group. And her work bridges data, financing, and gender, ensuring that voices of women and girls are reflected not only in statistics, but in the decisions that shape their futures. And through her leadership, she continues to guide how CRVS systems can become tools for empowerment, accountability, and inclusive growth. With a round of applause, let's appreciate Dr. Anju Malhotra. All right, I'll read out all the bios, and then I'll invite Julia to go ahead and moderate the session. Our second panelist is from Rwanda, a country globally recognized for its leadership in digital governance and gender inclusion. We are honored to have a speaker who sits at the center of its innovation in identity and registration systems. He serves as the Director of Civil Registration and Data Collection at the National Identity Agency, NIDA, where he has overseen the modernization of Rwanda's CRVS and national ID systems. And his work ensures that every citizen's identity is secured, accessible, and integrated into public service delivery. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together to welcome Mr. John Dodieu. I'm sure I am butchering the pronunciations. I don't speak French, pardon my pronunciation. Help me welcome the Director, Civil Registration and Data Collection, National Identity Agency, NIDA, Rwanda, with a round of applause. Our third panelist is a dynamic advocate for women's economic empowerment and social justice with a career that spans community transformation and global development. She represents CARE International USA, an organization that has long championed women's rights, gender equality, and inclusive systems that enable women and girls to thrive. Her experience bridges grassroots realities with strategic partnerships, making her a strong voice on how CRVS data can illuminate gender disparities and strengthen service delivery for marginalized populations. Please give me a warm round of applause to Ms. Queen Katembu, the CARE International USA representative. Next, we have Mr. Patrick Kaburi. Our next speaker brings a unique perspective from the world of philanthropy and strategic investment in human development. He serves as the Deputy Director at the Children's Investment Fund Foundation, CIFF, one of the world's largest philanthropic organizations focused on improving the lives of children and young people. His work focuses on leveraging data and partnerships to achieve measurable impact in health, education, and gender equality. And through his leadership, CIFF continues to invest in evidence-driven initiatives that strengthen CRVS systems as instruments of accountability and progress for children and families. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Patrick Kaburi, Deputy Director, CIFF. And rounding out this distinguished panel is a leader whose name has become synonymous with global health in innovation and inclusive development. As Director of Global Health at the International Development Research Center, IDRC Canada, he leads research and partnerships that bridge policy, science, and community impact. His work connects gender, equity, and evidence, helping countries use CRVS data to inform policies that leave no one behind. He brings a wealth of global perspective on how research and partnerships can scale up CRVS systems and that truly serve women, children, and vulnerable populations. Please join me with a round of applause in welcoming Dr. Montasa Kamal, Director, Global Health, International Development Research Center, Canada. And so to guide this rich and diverse discussion, we are honored to have with us a visionary leader and a champion for women's rights and reproductive health worldwide. She serves as the director of the program division at the United Nations Population Fund, UNFPA, where she oversees global strategies that empower women, protect reproductive rights, and promote gender equality, and her leadership and voice continue to shape the international agenda on data, inclusion, and dignity. Please join me in welcoming our moderator for this session, Ms. Julia Bunting, the Director Program Division, UNFPA, with a round of applause. Please clap until she gets on stage. Thank you.
So can I invite the panelists to come up and join me on the stage? And so thank you and good morning, bonjour, karibu again. As we know, CRVS systems worldwide continue to face significant gender disparities, disproportionately affecting women, girls, and marginalized populations. These inequalities often result in the under-registration of life events, including births, marriages, divorces, deaths, and limit women's access to essential services and their ability to exercise civil, political, and economic rights. CRVS systems, as we know, are critical for producing sex-disaggregated and gender-responsive vital statistics, which underpin evidence-based policy making on reproductive maternal health and on nuptiality. Yet in many countries, cultural norms, discriminatory laws, and socioeconomic barriers prevent women and girls from registering vital events or obtaining legal identification, perpetuating cycles of invisibility and exclusion. This panel discussion will explore some of the recent developments since the third CRVS and Gender Global Conference, which was held in October 2022. Together, we will examine emerging patterns and trends and priorities and actionable strategies to ensure that CRVS systems are leveraged as powerful tools to advance gender equality and women's empowerment across the life course, from birth to death, including life transitions such as marriage and divorce. So Charity has already graciously introduced our panels, so I won't repeat what she's already been said. And what I'd like to do now is to invite Dr. Anju, who is going to deliver a message on behalf of the GFF that has been pre-recorded. So if we can run the video, please.
Good morning from Washington, D.C. I'm Anju Malhotra, Gender and Measurement Lead at the Global Financing Facility. We are delighted that this fourth Global CRVS and Gender
Is it possible to
Symposium
restart with the
is
sound?
taking place, and only sorry at not being able to join you in person. We also keenly feel the terrible loss of our colleague Malatela Tuane, who served as GF. Good morning from Washington, D.C. I'm Anju Malhotra, Gender and Measurement Lead at the Global Financing Facility. We are delighted that this fourth Global CRVS and Gender Symposium is taking place, and only sorry at not being able to join you in person. We also keenly feel the terrible loss of our colleague Malatela Tuane, who served as GFF's expert and champion on CRVS since the very beginning of our partnership. Malatela lost her fight to cancer, but her spirit and contributions in the CRVS space live on, and I know they will be an inspiration in your deliberations over the next 3 days. It is in part a testament to Malatela's great work that CRVS with a strong gender focus remains a key priority at the GFF. It is core to many GFF investment cases and World Bank co-financed projects because we understand its centrality to women and girls being recognized and having official identity. For their rights and entitlements, women and girls need official proof, without which they often miss out on access to health care, health insurance, social protection benefits, income opportunity, citizenship rights, not only for themselves, but frequently also for their children. For example, we find in many GFF-supported countries that women lag behind in health insurance enrollment and utilization because they lack identity papers with proof of birth or marriage. Similarly, they need such proof of identity to collect cash transfer or maternity benefits. Adolescent girls need birth certificates and ID cards to access schooling and specialized training programs and to be protected against child marriage. The under-registration of female deaths relative to male deaths means that we have limited understanding of death from causes such as pregnancy or gender-based violence, which in turn prevents us from effectively addressing those causes. GFF and the World Bank provide considerable financing to governments to support most of these gender-related challenges to improving CRVS. In many cases, we work very closely with many of the partners present at this symposium. As one example, we have been working with countries to minimize the time, travel, and cost barriers women face in getting their child's birth registered by helping to streamline one-stop shop processes. Similarly, new digital CRVS systems present opportunities, but I'm sure you are also seeing challenges in their effectively serving women. And it would be good to hear about your insights on how women-friendly such innovations are turning out to be in practice. My colleagues Annette and Milka will be participating in the forum with you, sharing insights from such efforts, such as the restructured World Bank e-course on CRVS, with gender considerations integrated throughout. We look forward to hearing back from you and in sharing your experiences and deliberations. I have full confidence that you're in for an exciting and productive 3 days, and I would like to convey our best wishes and full support for the 4th CRVS and Gender Symposium. Thank you.
So thanks to my colleague Anju for her remarks, and particularly for highlighting how inclusive CRVS systems serve as a powerful force multiplier for advancing women's empowerment and gender equality across the life course. At UNFPA, we're honoured to work closely with colleagues at the GFF, both as a member of the GFF Investors Group and through our ongoing collaboration on CRVS and gender, as well as our joint efforts on reproductive and maternal health. So with that, now let's turn to the panelists in the room, and I'm going to turn first to Queen. So as we know, progress on gender equality under the SDGs remains significantly off track, with experts estimating it could take 300, I'm going to say that again, 300 years to achieve the current goals. This fourth global symposium is framed around a life course approach for CRVS and gender. So Queen, from your perspective, how can civil registration serve as a pivotal tool for advancing gender equality and women's empowerment, particularly in addressing poverty and social injustices across the life transitions from childhood to adolescence to adulthood and later life?
Thank you. Sorry. Thank you very much for that important question, and I'm very glad to be in this meeting. One of the things I've realized that all the speakers were saying there's importance to have women included in CRVS system. And I would say that when women and girls are invisible in CRVS systems, they are invisible in policy, in budgets, everywhere. When they are not counted, it means they actually don't exist, because it's like something, a statement we make in Swahili saying, asiyekuweko na lake aliko. That means if you are not there, you don't even benefit from anything. And therefore, when the CRVs are gender insensitive and they don't include women, and we know that they are actually the backbone and of legal identity and population data, then it means that we are actually defying the UN policy of leave no one behind. We are leaving women behind. They're not being accounted for. They are not services, and it is very important, even from where we come as civil society, where we push for inclusion of everybody. And I would say here we've come up with the structures and approaches to communities to identify some of the norms that are actually making them not to participate. Because all of us seem to identify that a lot of marriages are customary laws. Something is customary laws, that means it's anchored on norms and customs and traditions of that community. And they'll be it's very important to recognize that. And I would say at CARE, and maybe from civil society, and speaking from CARE's experience on how we are ensuring that this inclusion, we've come up with an approach that targets identifies norms and customs and traditions, and helping the people to understand, why are you not getting recorded? What are the norms that are not there? Because coming up with guidelines is one thing, but ensuring these are applied, it's very important to understand what are these norms that are making maybe women in Kenya not to go to register? What are these norms in the Middle East making women not to go and register? You understand them and program around them on how you are going to motivate them, to encourage them, and show them the importance of actually registering this, because it's very important. And we say that CRVs systems are not just about counting people, they are all producing data. They're actually about power and power relations. If you're not there, nobody's going to think about you. And when women are not there, then it means they're not being recognized. Or even girls are not being recognized. And one of the things I've realized, like almost 30 years ago, when we were doing population census, my husband was leading that, and every time you talk about James, John, and everybody else, and they were talking about household heads, counting household heads. And for a long time, female-headed households were not being counted for, which means there's a lot of bigger population that was not being accounted for. But I'm believing now in Kenya that female-headed households are being counted for. You're from Kenya, right? No, sorry. I believe the people from Kenya are doing population that female-headed households are being counted for. And I'm saying that when we don't count women, then we have consequences of running a gender-insensitive CRV system. If girls' birth isn't registered, she might not be able to go to school, If a woman's marriage isn't registered, she may not even access inheritance during divorce case. And this becomes great problems. If a woman's death is not counted, We lose critical data about maternal mortality, health disparities, and the inequalities persist across that. And if a birth certificate is not first recognized, the birth certificate is the first recognition of the identity of this child. So if they are not registered, then there's a big problem. Maybe it means the population we are talking about men and women, it is not inclusive. It doesn't count for women. And one of the things that we were discussing yesterday in our side event, we must understand, why are these women not being registered? Why are marriages not being registered? And we saw some of it has to do with the stigma. You remember, like during HIV/AIDS, when you said you are HIV, you'll be discriminated. Today is very easy. If I'm married to him, he will just divorce me, he leaves me with the children, and you just go ahead, move as if nothing happened. But I'll remain back with the children. When I say I'm divorced, everybody will look like you must be the problem. I'll be discriminated. And therefore, some of these perceptions that people have about divorced women and about marriage, they are anchored in custom. It's very important, even as we do this, let's address those social norms and gender norms that are hindering some of these challenges that we are having to make our CRVS system very, very inclusive. And we say that also in adolescent and adult, marriage and divorce registration protect women's rights, ensuring access to justice, poverty. Most of the young people I see, especially when their parents die, when their father died, a woman is left there, they end up losing everything. They are taken over because even sometimes men don't disclose what they have. When they die, they leave their family in poverty. And that's why we're saying, ensuring that a woman is included in all this and is recognized, then when there's a death situation, at least she can have access to these resources that have been left behind. I've had testimonials where people have suffered. Some of them, they had to change locations where they are living because a husband's death happened, and because they are not included, maybe they are not being recognized that as the right wife. Or you die and another wife just comes from nowhere. And because this marriage was not registered, you begin to compete for the few resources that are there. So if we are going to fight poverty and to fight injustice in the society, we must ensure that these registrations are there so that when it comes to talk about inheritance issues, accessing to some of these basic social services, at least women are accounted for and girls are accounted for. And just to say that that in care, we believe that in order to make a meaningful and a lasting impact at scale, we must tackle the underlying causes of poverty and injustice. And we have discovered that discrimination of women and girls is a key driver of poverty and injustice, and is one of the most forms of injustice. And we have thus developed approaches and tools that facilitate stakeholders and participants to interrogate discriminatory social and gender norms that hinder women's empowerment and gender inequality, thus building their agency and engaging men and boys as champions and allies of gender equality. We have developed an approach that we call social analysis and action, and in brief, SAA, and this can be adapted in strengthening gender and CRVS systems. And if you want to know more about it, we can talk about it. It helps people to understand what are the underlying causes, because I know here we are talking about developing guidelines. We have some of our countries are very good laws and policies, but sometimes we fail to check that all situations and events in Africa, they're actually anchored on customs and traditions. And many times there's a reason why marriages are not registered. I'm not registered because I want, please pour some water from. We realize that everything in Africa is centered around customs, traditions, and norms, and they are very distinctive for men and for women. And some of these roles are carried out even into our profession and in the work that we do. And it's very important to interrogate them and see how we can tackle them and program around them so that when we develop a policy, it's here to be developed. Back to you.
Thank you, Queen, and thank you in particular for highlighting the importance of sort of social norms and customs, etc. And you talked about some of the intersectionality of these issues, and I think about it not just in terms of the intersectionality and how it applies to the individual, but how some of these issues interact with some of the big global megatrends. So some of the work around urbanization and people on the move, rising inequalities, climate shocks, etc., digitization, all of those issues also interact, and we need to be considering them in that broader context. So I'd now like to move on to talk to Jean and the government from the government of Rwanda. We know that the government of Rwanda has long been recognized as a leader in technology and data innovations on the African continent. So perhaps, Jean, you can share with us how Rwanda has harnessed emerging technologies to make civil registration more accessible to its people in Rwanda. What have been the key areas of progress? What have been the systems and the data that they've produced? And maybe how you can help us to see how that has helped to advance Rwanda's commitment to leaving no one behind.
Thank you. The Rwanda CRVS from 2020 has taken place to be digitalized, and now all vital event is recorded electronically. We use any technology, we use national centralized and integrated CRVS system help to record all 9 events and be accessed by more than 3,000 point of services through health facilities, local government, and also embassies recorded the event carried out abroad. Also, NCI CRVS system is integrated with ID system and National Population Register and Ilembo e-government services, which is used for application of all government services. Also is used for ID service delivery ecosystem. CRVS system also is integrated with social registry that enable data-driven social protection program. There is also integration between CRVS and the immunization system for real-time data synchronization, enabling the delivery of targeted services. There is also integration of CRVS and the mortality data system for medical cause of death and the verbal autopsy to improve health outcome through the implementation for health interventions. For key area of progress, we have the accessibility. Record of and document of vital event can be requested online through the Ilembo e-government rather than in person, and reducing the time and costs associated with traveling and registration center and the completing paperwork. This is especially important for those living in rural areas, of those cannot afford to travel. There is also convenience. The new ID, digital ID, unify, identify for access for banking, social protection, and other services to decrease the number of documents previously needed. For quality data, NCI CRVS system generates data daily. Every time you want data from CRVS, you can access it. Mainly, our national statistical office is the one meant to produce vital event, and from 2019 we have vital statistic report. For advancing Rwanda's commitment to leaving no one behind, the reducing the administrative barriers, online services, and near real-time issuance many people who previously could not afford to travel are less likely to miss registration. There is also linking to social program, unique digital ID and linked record let government safely identify beneficiaries. There is also data show where registration gap remain, allowing for targeted outreach for underserved area of population. There is also immediate legal documentation, digital certificate available online, helping people access schooling, health services, and the other legal protection. And for all applications where, for example, if the child attend the secondary school for application for national examination, use the ID. For health insurance, to go to the medical treatment, use your ID, or for child for application number. For passport application, use also ID or application number. People that this help for CRVS to be the higher data demand for CRVS. That's why all everyone must be registered to access other services in Rwanda. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean. And again, the incredible progress that Rwanda has made on the sort of digitization and electronic systems, and again, across the integration. And we keep talking about that CRVS is not just in order to get data to be able to measure and monitor progress, it's also to drive development progress. And Rwanda is such a compelling example of the progress that has been made across so many of the SDGs, underpinned by the commitment to having the data to decide policies and programs to enable that to happen. So thank you. And I should also note that the National Statistics Institute of Rwanda hosts a Center for Innovation in Data and Statistics. So during this symposium, I encourage you to learn more about those innovations and to explore opportunities for South-South and triangular cooperation through collaboration with that center. So thank you, Jean. I'd now like to turn to Montasa and IDRC. So we've seen promising progress in some contexts. We continue to witness uneven progress, and in many places even stagnation. So in terms of IDRC Canada and the strong championing role that you've been playing for research that informs evidence-based policies and programs, I'd like you to maybe highlight some of the notable gaps and persistent challenges that we see in advancing inclusive health and civil registration systems, and particularly to draw on some of the lessons that were learned globally during the COVID-19 pandemic, which required us to begin working differently, and lessons since the third CRVS and Gender Global Conference held in 2022. Montasa, keen to hear from you.
Thank you very much for this introduction. It's really been it's a pleasure to be here today. It's the fourth symposium where I'm at. We hosted the first two in Ottawa, as Ambassador Taba mentioned today. So it's really a pleasure to be here in the fourth installment. The link between CRVS and gender disaggregated, the link between gender disaggregated CRVS systems and data that comes out of it, and decision making and the use of evidence for policy making is known to all of us. I think the challenge has always been sort of dedication, political commitment, resources, but also the knowledge gaps in terms of what are the hurdles that stand between people being registered or system existing for being registered, and also sometimes it's a technology issue, sometimes it's a political will issue, sometimes it's a resources issue, but the system needs to work together, and I think this has been part of the challenge all along. Registering and counting people through their life cycle have impact on people's lives, as we've been hearing today, and as you all know tremendously. This came out very strongly during COVID period, as was just mentioned. Those who were able to access social protection where it existed and countries where it existed were those that were registered or that had an official ID or registration that were able or were already in the system in terms of receiving social protection. Those who were not, migrant laborers, day laborers, and others who are not registered in systems anywhere, had the hardest time to access those resources. And many of those were women working in the informal sector who had no registration for their businesses or had no registration for their identification or business registration. So it really is, it comes to touch everyone, or it comes to touch a lot of people when, especially during times of emergencies, global health emergencies, which we have seen, we have seen recently. I want to particularly really celebrate and congratulate the work of the Center of Excellence for CRVS Systems and how unique it is in terms of not really only working on one or two or three pieces of CRVS systems, but on the system as a whole. The system really needs to work as a whole. There is no point in a child having registered, but his or her marriage is not registered, their divorce is not registered, their death is not counted. It does not make any sense. Progress cannot happen just by having one element of the system being perfect, which we know are far from perfect. We had a colleague who recently just completed a mission in one of the African countries of 30 million people, and she reported back that only 8,000 marriages were registered last year. That is impossible. That is not realistic. That means a lot of people will not have access to their rights. During the course of the symposium, I'm really looking forward to hearing a lot of the positive experience, and we have already heard several of them today from Kenya, from Rwanda, and hopefully from many other countries. And this is really worth celebrating. But I really, I want to say it really is still not enough. We need to do more. We need to do more as a community, whether we're working in national governments, we're working in funding organizations, in technical organizations, and funds. What we have been doing is impressive, but it is not enough. And still many women and young girls in particular are being left out of systems because they are not counted, and by extension their voices and their existence does not count. Maybe I'll just finish by saying, sort of like can one act of registration change the world? Like we have this sort of, like, can this one thing, can what I do make a difference? Yes, it can make a difference. It can make a difference in a person's life. It can make a difference for a girl's life. It can make a difference for a family's life. So I would like to just say, let us celebrate every single act, but let that not be enough. There are many hurdles, there are many barriers, and I'm really hoping this symposium will help us to move forward in removing some of those barriers in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Montessa. And at UNFPA, we're very proud to partner with IDC. And like many, we've greatly benefited from the collaboration over the years. And thank you for your commitment to these critical issues and for incubating this in the first 10 years of its life. And as I said earlier, we are now proud to take this work forward. I particularly thought the importance that you noted of each of these events, not just one, the sort of the life course approach, the longitudinal approach, I think is absolutely critical to really get that extra value from the data. And I'm going to upset my Kenyan colleagues. I have very little Swahili, but a word that I've learned in the recent days is haba na haba, little by little. So I think that's a commitment for all of us to continue step by step every day, trying to make sure that what we do tomorrow is better than what we've done today and builds on what we did yesterday. So thank you for what you've been doing. You talked about the gaps and the need for more, and maybe I'll turn now to Patrick at SIF. We know that the annual global development funding gap stands at approximately 4 to 4.3 trillion. That's an awful lot of zeros. $4.3 trillion. And an estimated $650 million is needed per year to meet the SDG data requirements in low-income countries. So while the demand for more and better data continues to grow, funding is absolutely not keeping pace, and it's many ways getting more challenging every day. Support for national systems is often lagged behind compared to the commitment and interest in new and exciting technologies. We need to get those fundamentals right. So as a result, there are now stronger calls for more cohesive, more coordinated and system-wide approaches to data and CRVS strengthening. So Patrick, maybe you could share with us from your perspective some of the major challenges and strategic opportunities that lie ahead in aligning efforts across domestic financing, international development assistance, philanthropic investments to create a more sustainable and integrated system of financing to support CRVS.
Thank you very much for giving me an opportunity, and thank you for the organizers for this symposium. Good morning, everyone. Well, I speak on behalf of Children Investment Fund Foundation, which is a charitable organization. We are very focused on children and very passionate. We want to ensure that every child survives and thrives. And I want to say that civil registration is very, and vital statistics is very fundamental to our mission. And without legal identity, children remain invisible to health, education, and protection services. Why CRVS matters is because a birth certificate is the first child right. It unlocks a lot of services for the children, immunization, nutrition, SRHR, and even education. What we have learned in the recent past is that coverage of primary health care services has increased dramatically, but unfortunately, birth registration is still low, below 50%, especially in Africa. I think we have opportunities. If we can integrate CRVS services in our primary health care, we are likely to improve the coverage of birth registration. And just want to say that if we can address the barriers, I think this is the important opportunity that we need to address. I think parents are very much willing and they are aware. They want to register births for their children. They are always available, but I think the challenge of them having to travel a long distance and very inconveniencing, even if the services are free, are some of the barriers that we see that makes birth registration to be very low in many setups. If we can ensure that we are able to register at the point of care and we go beyond the notification, I think that would be key. I was happy to hear that in Kenya, they want to ensure that birth certificates are being provided even at the facilities when they come back for their routine visits. I think that will go a long way in making sure that the parents are not inconvenienced. In terms of our funding as a charitable organization, I do acknowledge that the funding, there's a lot of funding gaps, but we believe that the way is to make sure that we have efficient services that are integrated. And as I've said, I think even if we mobilize as much resources as possible, there will remain a gap, especially for the costs that are incurred by the parents and the guardians when they are seeking these services. So if we can bring the services closer to them, I think that would be very encouraging. And again, I also want to say that we have opportunities. At the moment, there is increased in coverage of primary health care services. We have community health promoters. They are accessing households very routinely and oftenly. And I think we don't need many resources to ensure that we integrate, registration in those. I think the community health promoters can help the parents even to make applications for all these registrations that are required. And I believe that with the little resources that we have, we can really increase the coverage of CRVS. So I think that's one. And the second one, I also want to say that especially for the work we are doing for newborn care, most of them die even before they are registered. They are not counted. We are not, that denies us statistics that we need to understand what the root causes are and what we can do to improve services for these newborns. So I think my call to everyone, including the partners, is that We need to integrate CRVS into existing workflows without necessarily creating parallel systems. We need to co-finance with the governments, and they are doing really a great job. And so we are open to embedding these services in a safe and in a way that ensures the privacy of the children, to ensure that we make everyone is counted and is known. And my call is, let's make birth and identity the first service. And if we can integrate, we can deliver solutions that are efficient, equitable, safe, and cost-effective, so that every child not only survives, but thrives. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Patrick. And I think you talked about a couple of things that I think are really interesting. You talked about the cost of the individual of having to go through the process of registration. And I think there is such potential on the African continent and in other low-income countries to really leapfrog many of the systems that high-income countries have developed and are still using. So I think that is a really great opportunity. And you talked about the importance of co-financing. And I think, again, we often talk about costs, but I really do see this as an investment in the future, in the lives and life chances of people when they have these access to these legal identities. I really want to thank SIF for speaking up on these issues. It is not always seen as a sexy issue compared to many of the other issues, but it is foundational to so much of what we do. So having organizations like the Children's Investment Fund Foundation speaking up on these important issues is really critical, and I hope that you can bring more partners to the table. So as we conclude this panel, this opening panel, I'd like to think more broadly about the sort of the future of sustainable development, which we know is directly tied to fulfilling the aspirations of all people, especially women, girls, and adolescents, which is why we're focused not only on CRVS, but the important dimension of gender. We know that empowering the world's women in full partnership with our work with men and boys, and unlocking the potential of the more than 1.8 billion young people through realizing universal civil registration will be instrumental in achieving the vision and promise of the Programme of Action of the International Conference on Population Development more than 30 years ago, but also to achieving the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. We have made meaningful progress, and we should celebrate the progress that has been made, but we know there is still a long way to go, and hopefully these discussions over these next 3 days will continue to catalyse that journey that we're on. So it's my hope that this symposium will help us draw out the key lessons that are around the world, those best practices that need to be accelerated and shared, that will allow us to showcase these promising innovations that many of you have, that will enable us to translate our shared aspirations for inclusive CRVS systems, the stronger population data, and importantly, the tangible actions and results for real people in real places. So let us together build on that momentum, strengthen the CRVS and gender movements, and ensure that every person is counted, visible, and empowered from birth through to death and every transition in between. Please join me in thanking our panelists in the room and Anju online for their thoughts and contributions. Charity, I'm handing back to you.
All right, thank you so much. Let's appreciate our panelists and our moderator, Julia, for that amazing session. We're only going to take 2 questions, and I'll kindly request us to feel free to shoot your hand up, and we will take the question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Shumari from Kenya. We appreciate what Rwanda has done. We are obviously thinking digital ourselves. So my question would be, how did you overcome the concerns on digital divide? We'd want to imagine that not everybody is able to have access to digital devices, internet. How did you, Rwanda, attend to that? Number 2, the civil society is the point of information and so to speak, enforcers of human rights within the society. How did you bring them on board? Because more often than not, they are both helpful, but in most instances, when you try to make the step forward, if they are not brought on board, they can be a barrier. How did you bring them on board? Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. So because you've asked two, we are going to go with that. However, I believe our panelists are going to be around the room. Please feel free to engage them during the breaks for the rest of the questions. Over to you for the answer.
So John, I think those were both directed to you and the work in Rwanda. So the digital divide and civil society engagement.
Thank you. For digital, from 2000, Rwanda have the plan for infrastructure in ICT, because currently all country is connected. For CRVS, we use the existing stuff. We don't need other devices because amendment of law give responsibility of health staff, local government. There is no other civil registrar recruited. They use the computers they use already in their work. If it's in a health facility, the registrar is the director of nursing and midwifery, and they have a computer they use in this, and they continue to use it for child registration. For local government, the civil registrar is executive secretary officer, is in responsibility before the assigning the role of a civil registrar. That's why the digital devices is not problem for us. Also for abroad, the registrar is ambassador. Ambassador use the device they have. For internet, it may come up with the rural areas with FARAs, but we are sure that all civil registrars region or point of service have internet for use on daily basis. Also, they have many ways. We have optical fiber in all countries, and the other are connected with other companies. They deliver the internet. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let's give a round of applause to our panelists, even as they have their seats. That was session 1, and without much further ado, we are going to continue into the next section. And this next section is titled, we're going to have, just give me one quick minute. Let's appreciate them one more time as they have their seats. Thank you so much. We're going to transition to our next part of the program. And this next section, we are going to have, this is session 2, labeled Major Developments in CRVS and Gender. We have the chair, Dr. Montase Kamal, the Director of Global Health, IDRC Canada. Let's give him a round of applause, even as he joins us on stage still. All right, and then we also have several panelists, and before the session starts, I will welcome the security briefing. In the meantime, I'll kindly request our panelists to join us on stage. We have insights from across the African continent, Mr. M. Dago, Population and Social Statistics Expert, StatAfric, African Union Commission on behalf of the African Union. Let's put our hands together to welcome Mr. M on stage. And then we'll also have insights from across the African continent and the APAI CRVS Regional Initiative. Mr. William Muwava, the Chief Demographics and Social Statistics, UNECA, on behalf of the regional core group APAI CRVS. Let's put our hands together for Mr. William. Lessons from Latin America, we have Mr. Omar Morales, Director, very big title, Latin American and Caribbean Council on Civil Registry. Identity and Visa Statistics Network. Let's put our hands together for Mr. Omar. Come with me, guys. Come with me, guys. Let's clap. And then we'll have insights from the Asia Pacific CRVS decade, Mr. Meli Nadakuka. Let's put our hands together for Mr. Meli Nadakuka, who will also be joining us physically here. We have Arab States, Dr. Aber Nasser, Director Statistics Division, League of Arabs, who will also be joining us virtually together with Mr. Omar. And before we continue, even as you have your seats, before we start the panel discussion, we're going to have a panel, or rather a security briefing, and I'll kindly request us to put our hands together even as we welcome Mr. William from the Security Department of UN. Let's put our hands together for Mr. William.
Good morning, all. Yes, you have been told. My name is William Lewatachum from UNDSS Department of Safety and Security. Yes, it is always a norm. It's always a culture. It's a tradition that whenever we have UN functions, events, it's always good to start with the security briefing so that we know the do's and the don'ts. We also understand the current security dynamics of Nairobi. So as I wait them to project. So let's wait as they do the projection. Huh? So for those of you, this is your first time to be in Kenya. We normally say Karibu Sana, most welcome. It is safe to be here. The weather is good, as you can be able to see it. So welcome on behalf of the PSA, Mr. Peter Marshall. I'm here this morning to give you the security briefing, just to give you an insight of what is the current security dynamics. So this is the objective, the overview. I will give you a snapshot of the UN operation in Kenya. Gives you an insight of the current security situation in Kenya, and particularly, specifically to in Nairobi, and in extension, gives you some insights of threat categories that are likely to impact your short stay in Nairobi. So it's just a security awareness. And lastly is to give you a guidance in an event whereby we have an emergency. How are you supposed to react? So this is the areas that I intend to cover: the security operation in Kenya, UN security risk management areas in Kenya, particularly which is the United Nations office in Nairobi, the headquarters itself. The country borders 5 countries. To the north, you can see it's Ethiopia. To the east is Somalia. To the south west is United Republic of Tanzania. And to the western side, we border Uganda. To the north west, we border South Sudan. We also have 3 missions. 1 mission in South Sudan, which is HANMIS, and 2 intertwined missions in Somalia. So those colleagues who serve in those missions, they have their families here. In Kenya, we serve them like any other UN staff. We have a very big UN footprints in the country. Those are the UN offices spread across the entire country, covering 22 locations. Those areas, the security risk level differs from area to area. You can see because of the complexity, homogeneous threats which are associated in those locations. We have over close to 6,000 UNSMS footprints working in Kenya. This exclude the staff members who work in the neighboring countries. Some agencies also are devolving staff to Nairobi, and UNFPA is one of them who are developing their functions. We are glad to receive our colleagues. With this, we also have dependents of UNSMS, which is of 11,000. So you can imagine the footprints of UN SMS in this region. This is the face of the UN in Kenya. Country teams, we have 47 agencies, funds, and programs. Our regional offices, we have 22 regional offices in Kenya, Bretton Woods Institute. It includes the World Bank Kenya, IFC Kenya and Somalia, and IMF Kenya and Somalia, which the offices are there in Upper Hill. We also have remote offices, the Office of Great Lakes, support office for Somalia, that I have just mentioned, and the UNIMIS logistic base, which is in Mombasa. So these are the entities which have the headquarters here in Nairobi, UNFPA, UN Habitat, UNEP, and the UNON itself. So this is just the face of Kenya. The map you see is purely was actually subdivided for easy management of security of UN, purely in this country, in the 22 locations that I have just mentioned. Nairobi is SRM Area 2, Security Risk Management 2, which is extend to Nairobi and the southern area where I am in charge. The general threat assessment for Nairobi is moderate. It's not high. It's not low. So it is something that we need actually to understand. The security of the entire 5 security risk management areas actually ranges from moderate to high. I urge you to download this application tool so that you can be able to get our time to time. It's called Electronic Travel Advisory. It's a very useful tool. You can download through your Play Store, and we do send security information from time to time. These are the categories. Currently, the security situation in Nairobi is relatively calm. Nevertheless, we do have an impromptu protest either occasioned by the civil societies, the students. Like yesterday, we had a protest occasioned by the University of Nairobi students. So it is always good to know that areas which those protests do occur is central business areas, CBD area. Crime is also high in the city. We have had incidences in the past of terror attacks in this country, and it is always good to be also aware. So overall, it is relatively stable. Nothing significant has impacted the UN operation of late. All UN missions, UN operation in the country are going on smoothly. It's also notable to note that road traffic accidents are very common, and sometimes it impacts significantly on our operation. So it's always good, as you use the taxis, try to take full in charge of the vehicle all the time. Be aware of these terror attacks because the perpetrators who are the Al-Shabaab, they still have the intent. There is also, they also have the capability of launching more attacks. They have done that in the past, and we just feel, according to our assessment, there is also this intent of launching more attack in the country. The hotel that we are in, the Safari Park, is one of the UN approved hotel. It is certified, it meets all the requirements. The hotel is safe. It also safe events in an event whereby we have an active shooter, we have an incident that is impacting your stay here. The hotel has several centric layers of security, including the host government security forces who are manning the entire premises. This I have just spoken. So because of the interest of time, I will stop there. So it is good. I will go to the last slide, and I will give you some of the contacts in case you are impacted by any incident and you need an emergency call. You can just reach us. These are the emergency contacts. You can also reach us through these emergency contacts. taxes, UN approved taxes. You can use, reuse these taxes. They are UN certified and approved. Bolt is not here, it's not approved, because we had an incident whereby UNSMS was robbed while using the Bolt. We don't also advocate the use of motorcycle, commonly referred in Kenya as border borders. They are becoming a means of a criminality. We don't encourage you to use those border borders. These are the emergency contacts. You can take a snapshot. In case of anything, you can reach us. The last name is my name. So with this few remarks, thank you very much, colleagues, for your audience. I really appreciate you, and I wish you all the best as you continue with the symposium.
All right, let's appreciate Mr. William. Security is very important. The only thing getting heated here are the conversations, and the only attack we are doing is attacking the problems and solving them here at CRVS and Gender Symposium. I'll kindly request the rest of the panelists to join us on stage, even after hearing the security details. Let me call upon Dr. Romesh Silva, Symposium background paper. He is going to give us perspective from the Symposium background paper, Center of Excellence from our CRVS Systems, UNFPA. Let's give him a round of applause even as he joins us on stage. All right, and we are going to hear a perspective from financing and fundraising, civil registration system scale up in a changing world from Ms. Shaida Badi. Let's kindly put our hands together to welcome Ms. Shaida on stage. Another perspective, version 2.0 of the World Bank Group, e-learning courses on CRVS systems. You're going to hear that from Ms. Annette. Let's put our hands together even as we welcome Ms. Annette on stage. Ms. Annette is from Global Financing Facility, World Bank Group. Over to you, our moderator for the session. We're going to break shortly. Hopefully, you're going to take about 30 to 40 minutes, and then we'll go for tea break. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the introductions and for saving the time for introducing the panel. It's wonderful to have you here today. We've started to hear this morning already about some country-specific examples and successes. Let us now move on to kind of regional perspectives and experiences. You have all seen the background paper to the symposium. Romesh is going to give us very, very quick highlights before we move on to our panelists to speak from regional and global perspectives from their point of view. So Romesh, please, your highlights. Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much, Montasa and Charity. It's really a great pleasure to be with everybody and to see so many wonderful friends and even many new faces. I, again, just wanted to draw everybody's attention to the symposium background paper. I'm sure everybody studied it dutifully, so as Montasa suggests, I'll just kind of touch on the key highlights. I'm hoping our videographer will be able to share the slides. So while you're doing that, I'm just going to keep moving in the interest of time. The background paper this year really touches on 7 key areas and really pushes us, and you'll see in the agenda for the next 3 days, the agenda is organized around these 7 key areas of discussion. One is the strategic framing of civil registration and vital statistics and gender. We've already heard from our high-level panelists the criticality of a life course approach, and I think Montasa himself just said it a moment ago, the real risks and the dangers of taking a pick-and-choose approach and focusing on one particular aspect of life. The second area which the background paper really calls our attention to as a global community is one of synthesis of guidance and synthesis of tools. The very next panel, session number 3, after our coffee break, will appreciate the growth in a lot of important technical guidance and tools to support civil registration system strengthening. But somewhat provocatively, it will also ask the question, or rather relay the question, which we at UNFPA and the Centre of Excellence continue to hear around the field from many national authorities. Which of these tools do we use when? And which are the most appropriate in which different contexts? So I think we as a community perhaps have some challenges ahead to figure out how to synthesize, structure, and align, and perhaps even modularize some of these technical offerings. The third area, which the background paper discusses, is the area of inequality assessments. We've seen many of our partners around the world, and I really want to give a special recognition to some of our Regional Economic Commission colleagues from ESCAP and the Economic Commission for Africa, in addition to us at UNFPA, have really moved on developing diagnostic tools and strengthening capacity to identify inequalities in civil registration. I think one of the key things, though, is a lot of these analyses predominantly focus on birth registration. And more recently, particularly through the cold hard realities of the COVID-19 pandemic, have started to focus a little bit more on death registration. We see massive data gaps and knowledge gaps in the key transition areas of the middle of life, marriage and divorce. And so again, this year's symposium will challenge us a little bit to think a little bit about how do we expand and strengthen these kinds of inequality assessments and not just focus them on the bookends of life. The fourth area of the discussion paper takes us through is a real need for a more data systems integration. I think Julia herself at the start of today's proceedings reminded us that we are well into a global data emergency. 30% of the global population was unenumerated in the 2020 census round. We all know the COVID-19 pandemic caught us all napping and proved that many, many death registration systems, even in high-income countries, are not fit for purpose. And so even as funding now is further constrained, I think the idea and the call for action is about what can we do with what we have and what can we do better with what we have and join it up more so that it has more of a multiplier effect. The fifth area is the expansion of data usage. There's been, over the last 20 to 30 years, there's been a lot of investment in system strengthening. And when I say system strengthening, I think it's fair to say that most of it is in the CR of CRVS. It's in the strengthening of civil registration. We've seen less progress and less impact in terms of the usage of the data, particularly in the VS area. And so we really want to try to mobilize around more of more work around analyze what you collect and disseminate and publish and use what you analyze. And I think that's a really key area that we need to have cultural change within CRVS, particularly in terms of gender use cases of these kinds of data. The second last area, which I suspect we're still struggling with slides, but again, I'm sure everybody's very familiar with the background paper, so we can keep moving along, is evidence to action. We are going to have a couple of presentations on our day 3 where we step outside of our own field, and we'll be joined by a number of colleagues from the IDRC and KEMRI Research Institute here in Kenya to reflect and share with us how many other fields like HIV/AIDS, childhood immunization, women's empowerment, just to name a few, have really championed and inculcated in those areas of practice a culture of operations research and implementation science. What do I mean by that? I mean operations research in terms of measuring and evaluating what works where, when, and how, and why. And then in terms of implementation science, figuring out across the diversity that we live in around the world, how do we scale up these kinds of successful interventions across all of this kind of diversity. And so we want to have a conversation about how can we as a civil registration, vital statistics, and legal identity community learn from these other fields and perhaps ourselves create much, much stronger foundations of evidence to action when we think about system scale up. And then I think the last point that I just really like to draw everybody's attention to is the coordination and financing piece. We already heard from our excellent colleague from CARE International. We tend to preach to the converted a little bit, I think is the reality of it. And we'll hear and we'll engage in this year's symposium with some colleagues who perhaps aren't always at the center of our work, but I think we need to find ways to engage them more. Particularly, we'll hear from some colleagues from the banking and finance sector. We'll also hear from colleagues from community grassroots organizations. And so we hope that this year's symposium will help us think through and perhaps even move into action in terms of moving well beyond our current community, but growing the tent so that this is even a bigger movement than it already is.
Thank you very much, Romesh. I'm sure many of you want to have Romesh stand up there and speak a little bit more and ask him some questions, but I think we're going to move on. We're going to do a very quick sort of round from each of the speakers, kind of what we call a fireside chat. So 2 or 3 hot or top of mind topics from each one. And I'm going to call on, the first one is Mr. Amy Dagu, who's going to provide us insights from across the African continent and the AU StatAfrique regional initiatives. Mr. Dagu is the Population Health and Statistics expert at StatAfrique, African Union Commission on behalf of the African Union. 2 or 3 top of mind topics or issues, please, Mr. Dagu. Go ahead, thank you.
Yeah.
So use your, thank you.
So for the people in the room who don't speak French, we kindly request you to turn on the translator by pressing the button in front of you at the middle. Once you press it, it's going. Please wear your headphones for the translation. Thank you.
Is it okay? Okay.
This morning I will present with you the highlight of the African continent on the CRVS. My name is Ovitago. I'm a demographer working with the African Institute called StatAfrique. So to talk about StatAfrique, StatAfrique, it is a statistic institute of African Union. Hello, can you hear the English interpretation? Can you hear? I think maybe others are in the wrong channel.
So immediately put on the earphones or the headsets. There's a button at the very far, so that's where you're going to change the languages. And the button closer to you is the volume.
Channel A, you go to English. It is written ENG.
Channel 8, is that the right one? A. Okay. Okay. A for English. Is it working?
All right, for the people with this kind of devices, please open this part and then you're going to click Channel Select, the middle button. Yes. The translator, please say something so that you can do that.
Hello, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Sound check, 1, 2, 3. Ça marche pour tout.
Okay.
Mr. Dagouk, you can go ahead, please. As I said, Start Africa is a demographic institute of the African Union. Its objective is to coordinate, harmonize quality statistic at the continental level in order to support policies in Africa. So Start Africa is like Eurostar in Europe. It is also an equivalent of NCA from the Association of Southeast Asian countries. So what is the status at the continental level? We have to say that in Africa, Africa was able at least to overcome main stages for the implementation of CRV in 2023. I can hear him.
Maybe use the microphone, Monsieur Dagoul.
Okay. So, as for the status, I can say that a number of countries were able to kick off the national plan for the vital statistic data. However, there is a lot of challenges in terms of access. So we have registration as well as institutional fragmentation. And we also have the paper system that's still existing, as well as also access to health services. So what are the progress covered in the continental level? So we need to say that we had some progress in terms of we have the SDG 13 that are some of the program that has been established by the African Union called Sashadu. It is a statistic program for the African continent, and this technical group has the mandate to adapt the international standard in order also to promote civil statistics between state members, as well as to support the implementation of these standards. So this group is making sure that all the activities align with the SDG as well as the Agenda 63. We still have to cover the area of capacity building through regional activities that has been conducted. We also have joint activities with the different registry departments, as well as supporting state member together in collaboration with other Africans and other institutions together. So after discussing on different progress, what are the way forward? I spoke about SDG 13. We have activity that cover 2025 to 2026. So we have to put in place systems. We need to elaborate as well as a manual that will help us to publish statistic data. So this is an activity that has to be done with different state members. We also define a list and also harmonize a different indicator on the civil registry, and then we also came up with a number of information about the mapping of different documents, and also dealing with the issue of civil registry. And we also covered what we call AI and also data, satellite data, and we rely on all this system. So these are activities that need to be covered for the year 2025 and 2026. So with regard to the way forward in Southern Africa, we need to come up with guidelines that will help us to kick off our activity. A consultant has been recruited, and this guideline it is to improve our activities. So in the product that will be completed soon, we will have a section that will focus on the legal framework. We will have also a section that will look at the aspect of coordination as well as quality and the availability and the level of reliable of data. So then we will also have a pillar that will focus on innovation, and one section will also focus on capacity building and human resources. And the other one will focus on community and sensitizing population to register. So I think that once we'll be done, this document will be disseminated to all the states and will help all state members to access information. So we are planning to have a committee with the ministry committee, and it will be organized soon. And also we will have a continental meeting for the year 2025. Where we will bring all the directors from the African continent. In terms of a way forward, we have the recommendation of the last meeting for the implementation of SDG 13. During that meeting, a number of recommendations came out. Each and every state member were required to increase resources. I'm sorry, I have an issue with my slide. So the state member were requested to increase their resources as well as to accelerate the digitalization as well as to integrate the system. And the state member also, it was requested to the state member to focus on displaced people and also to streamline the United Nations program called Justice for All. As for the Pan-African organization, it is required to coordinate and to share annual plan of technical support. It is also required for a Pan-African organization to organize a reference meeting in order to assess the system and also to provide any assistance if it is required. And it is also required to review the legal framework so that they may align to the international standard. I'm sorry, I think my slide do not really follow what I'm presenting. So these are the recommendations for Pan-African organizations. And we also have a recommendation for the regional community. So it's required to, those organizations are supposed to establish a platform in order to promote a sector. It is also required to those committees to share any technical activities that is done in order to avoid duplications. And then we also have the collective action plan for the year 2026 that call upon all the state member and Pan-African organization, as well as the World Bank, as well as any other international partner, FME, Afritech, and so on. So, dear colleague, I would like to thank you.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Dago, pour le sommet.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ago, for the recommendation as well as sharing with us the progress based on this program. So now for
and the API CRVS, the regional initiative, Mr. William Mohawava, Chief Demographics and Social Statistics, UNECA, on behalf of the chair of the regional core group, API CRVS. And William, could you please just be brief and two main highlights? Thank you.
Okay, I'll try to be very brief. I'm going to talk about one of the oldest programs on CRVS globally. It's actually the API CRVS, which was established in 2009, and it has been running for 16 years consistently. And I should actually thank, our funders who have changed over time, but consistently, this program has been running for 16 years. That's why I say it's one of the oldest programs. Next slide. So where did it start from? There's this article. Fortunately, we still have somebody who wrote that article in 2007, still active, who is Philip Settle. They wrote this article, which is called The Scandal of Invisibility in Africa, and it was in 2007, and it came out in the Lancet. When this article came out, a lot of people were really surprised, and one of the statements in there was, many Africans are born and die without leaving a trace in any legal record and official statistics. So people come into the population, exit without being. So the single most critical failure of development then was actually identified as this, the failure to actually make people visible. So this actually prompted the realization that Africa needed to do something. Next slide. So that's when the API CRVS was born. After 2007, there was this meeting in Tanzania 2 years later, which brought the whole continent together to actually look at this issue. And it was recommended that ministers have specifically urged for a holistic and integrated approach to reforming and improving CRVS. So, out of this resolution, a number of things occurred. Next slide. There was the formation of Conference of Ministers. I think my colleague here from the African Union has indicated to that. So, this is how it was structured. So, at the top, we have the Conference of African Ministers responsible for civil registration. And in Africa, civil registration falls in very different ministries: interior, home affairs, decentralization in the francophone. So we had to identify who are these ministers who can represent civil registration. So that becoming the governing body, then we had the Pan-African institutions, the FDB, AUC, and ECA. ASD was actually an association of statistician generals who now it's a bit functional and dysfunctional. So it leaves those three. Then we have the Upper CRVS core group, which is the grouping of all development partners working in CRVS in Africa, and we meet almost every month. One, it helps us actually to avoid duplication. It also helps us to identify where are priorities needed. For example, now our focus is in countries which are emerging out of wars and emergencies, and where systems have actually been destroyed. We actually have Sudan. We also have, all these countries in the Sahel, which actually go into war, recover, and slip back into war and all those kind of things. Then, lastly, we have actually that bottom part, which actually I'm responsible for. So we have the Upper CRVS, which sits in my office, and the purpose is actually to drive the strategy for development and all the activities of. And that's our mission. I think I will actually circulate this. Our mission is to make sure legal identity is acquired by all Africans, and it starts from birth to death. The life cycle approach, I think it has actually been alluded to on a number of times. And our vision is to make, very simple, everyone visible in Africa. We have been operating with that mission for the past 15 years. And here are our guiding principles. Everything we do is country-owned. We use best international practices. So what actually happens is we look at what is going on globally, and we are a conduit to bring that to Africa. Then we are also working on innovation, research, and knowledge. For example, you have heard that a lot of the work is now going into digitization, innovation, and so forth. So we are actually looking at how CRVS systems in Africa can be digitized. Then the others actually sort of the normal day of our lives, strengthening capacity, phased, holistic, integrated approaches. Next slide. Also, we have these guiding principles, which is almost similar. Next slide. Then what are our priority interventions? We do capacity building, innovation and harmonization of techniques. And I'll speak for 30 seconds at the end on an initiative which we are actually doing in terms of harmonization, promoting knowledge sharing and best practices. One of the things we have managed to sort of address is actually exchanging experts between countries. So instead of using consultants, so instead of paying 100,000 for a consultant, we actually end up paying 10,000 just by getting somebody from Kenya and going to Namibia. Because these people are already doing this stuff in the office like KNBS or CRIS. So instead of actually getting an international consultant, we ask CRIS in Kenya and say, can we have somebody to attach to Somalia for, let's say, 3 months or 6 months and so forth. Then we are promoting research. I think we'll talk about that, the work we are doing with ESCAP and other regions. Next slide. We have this three-phased approach: reorientation phase, preparatory phase, and operational phase, which we operated in every country. We look at how is your orientation of the CRVS, how can we prepare to actually innovate your CRVS, and we put it into the operational phase. Next slide. I think go to the last slide. So we have all these achievements, which actually just here, interestingly, the work which we have done 45 national comprehensive assessments. We have done more than 40 strategic plans. We still have, I think, 9 countries where we have not managed to make a breakthrough. We have done 5 ministerial conferences, and the essence of ministerial conferences is that anything which is agreed upon by ministers, countries implement. Then the second advantage is once there is that ministerial agreement, we actually have the opportunity of taking one paragraph out of it to the heads of state. And you know, in Africa, whatever the president says goes. And that's our advantage. We sit in that particular advantage because we can elevate from the ministerial to the heads of state. We have our challenges still: poor coordination, competition for resources, funding, and so forth. Then I think that will be the last slide. If you go to the next slide. These are some of the resources we have developed which can be accessed from our API CRVS website. We have the improvement framework, we have the EIA learning courses, we have implementation guides, knowledge platforms, research briefs, and country profiles. Next slide. So, our way forward, we have actually revised our API CRVS second phase plan based on a theory of change. I would have loved to go into this theory of change, which is very interesting in the way we conceptualized it. So this new strategic plan has been running from 2023 to 2028, and we'll actually be undertaking an evaluation of it. The strategic pillars of this strategic plan is demand and advocacy. So this is based on our observation that we tend to forget the voices of the communities we serve. So the demand side of it, we have concentrated on the supply side. What the Civil Registration Office can do, what the National Statistical, but we forget that people have to leave their homes to actually come for. So what incentivizes them to actually come and register? And we were looking at it with marriages, and there was even a statement that at times there is not even an incentive to go and register the marriage. So why would somebody leave their home and go to the registration center? Innovation, integration, interoperability, and decentralization. And what we observed during the COVID actually constitute the last point. We discovered that most of the civil registration systems in Africa were very rigid. I think the largest failure of civil registration system was actually exhibited during the COVID. Instead of civil registration showing us what was happening during the COVID, it failed. And we ended up having to go to hospitals and say, can you report the deaths which are occurring? What might be the cause and whatever? So, because of these failures we recorded, we recommended that we need systems which are flexible, agile, simplified, resilient to epidemics and emergencies, proactive. They should be able to, I think yesterday we actually looked at this issue of services which should be going to the people. I mean, we have talked about an event happening even in a community, And I always say, from Cape to Cairo, you can't bury a dead person without informing a village head. So the information is there. There's somebody who has that information. But how does it fail to move from a village head who can tell you 10 people have died in this community in the last 3 months? So that information is not. It's the same as a birth, which happens in the community. There's a traditional birth attendant who can tell you, I attended to 5 births in the last couple of months. But how are we failing to move that information from where it is to where it needs to be? So let me conclude here.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks so much. Your passion comes through. Thank you very much. Thank you. Now we'll go to Latin America again, hopefully briefly. Mr. Omar Morales Marquez, Director del Servicio de Registro Civil de Identificación de Chile, President of Latin American Caribbean Council on Civil Registry, Identity and Vital Statistics Network. And I think it's virtual.
For this specific presenter is in Spanish, so we'll kindly request you to wear your headsets for the English and French translation.
So from Santiago de Chile, from America Latina, we're also sending a greeting, and we are grateful for this possibility of being reunited through this video. From CLASIEV, which is the Latin American Council of CLASIEV, I am Omar Morales, I'm the president, and there is my companion. I think we're going to start. So from Santiago de Chile, here in Latin America, we are sending our cordial and affectionate greeting. We are grateful for this possibility of being reunited or meeting through this video. From CLASIEV, which is the Latin American Council of CRVS, I am Omar Morales, I'm the president, and there is my companion who's a technical secretary of CLASIEV. We're going to do a brief presentation of what we're doing in the topics of gender. And in our presentation, please, if you can show us a presentation. So in the screen, you can see the presentation. We are grateful for the possibility of being present in this 4th Global CRVS and Gender Symposium that is happening in Nairobi, Kenya. Also can you hear me? I hope you can all hear me. Interpretation is going on, thank you. I think they're giving the opportunity to start again. So from Santiago de Chile, the capital of Chile, and here in America Latin, we're sending an affectionate and grateful greeting. We are grateful for this possibility of being able to meet through this video. From CLASIEV, which is the Latin American Council of CRVS, I am Omar Morales, I'm the president, and there is my companion who is a technical secretary of CLASIEV. We're going to do a brief presentation, especially in the topics of gender. In our presentation, if you can show us the presentation, please. So in the screen, you can see the presentation. We are grateful for the possibility of being able to be here in the 4th Global CRVS and Gender Symposium that is happening in Nairobi, Kenya. Also to thank the possibility of the UNFPA that has given us extended this invitation, and also to mention that CRVS is an institution that was formed and has been developed from the interior of the OEA, the Organization of American States. And as you can see in the screen, it's an organization that was born in 2005 that is formed by the CRVS. It's a space where we generate good practices and we develop common activities. So in this process, CRVS has been generating, especially from the year 2008, strategic alliances, both of the OEA, which is our base, and also UNHCR, also with the World Bank and also UNICEF, through this joint work that different institutions and others that we are developing a joint work. We are 18 countries that are members, you can see in the screen, that work and we collaborate, especially in the topic of identification and the registry of persons. The organization of CRVS has an executive committee and the assembly that happens once a year, and that has happened just a few weeks ago in El Salvador, and the executive committee that is made up of Brazil, that has the first vice presidency, Panama, Honduras, Peru, and El Salvador, in a joint work that besides each of our countries are carrying out these technical tables to develop the different statistics, registry activities that affect us in our continent. Here you can see in the photo the last encounter that happened in El Salvador, as I was mentioning, where we have the representative of the 18 countries that are titular members and also 3 observers that are mainly from the Caribbean. Very well, I cannot not mention that we have also promoted as CRVS a week of registry, civil registry that happened in September. Basically was oriented to eliminate the invisibles, especially in the topics of children and adolescents that don't have an identity, which is a product of the migration. In this joint work, we put a lot of effort to generate actions and also to mention you some of the results that we obtained. We can see that the total registrations that have been realized by country, you can see in the screen, which means that there's a lot of coordination in different instances to be able to get to the far areas, in the rural areas. The Amazon, Chile has a very low quantity because our level is less than 0.05%. And one of our main worries is mainly because of the migratory young people who are getting into the country, and we're trying to solve out this issue. Total registrations have happened 32,177, which is a great effort that represents a great advance for progress for the country, for the region. You can visit our webpage of CRVS that you can see the screen that is showing what we are carrying out on the great and also the studies that we have actually carried out. With respect to the advances in gender aspects, with respect to what we had talked about, Latin America has shown that the registrations of birth, girls and boys, to be able to advance and to be able to generate actions that allows us to resolve the lack of registration that many of us, that is with the vulnerabilities that exist. And that has happened especially from 2017, especially from a certain Inter-American court to give the importance of advancing in this particular matter. Here we have Peru, an important country. They have a special ID for children and also minors below 18. Here you can see the different data. It shows a worry, especially in these topics on how to be able to progress in the registry. And also there's a worry about the foreigners to be able to detail it by sex. With respect to the modification of the validity of the IDs for minors, this has been created spaces for them. Peru has a very good example of a good practice, especially to identify a population that is minor population below 18 years. And that is something that is fully in development. Chile, on the other hand, as you can mention, they have a very important aspects, more than 300 offices in the country. We have a policy in the last 3 years of advancing in the breastfeeding rooms, also a place of waiting rooms for children, also rooms to rest, and also accessibility and care in all the country, also clubs of friends for different staff members of the country. So we have a policy, a gender policy that comes from in the government lines of the civil registry. We want to have a specific agreement with the different Ministry of Social Development to be able to look at the women, especially Mapuche, and also to have these spaces for children. And also want to mention that our service in Chile is shown in the website. You can see this mainstreaming of the gender approach, program of the registry civil, women for the registry. It's part of our strategy, something that follows not only the services, but also a coverage that comes from the office where we start from, with more than 40,000 people per day. That is very relevant, especially in the different areas, or the areas in the very wide geographical areas. And that, I think the sound is going, and also the urgent need to have a presence of the state. Also, in the observatory, we have an observatory of detail. We publish matrimonial data, different data, the change of the order of the surnames, which is a public policy that is very relevant, had been proposed in the last year. Debt pensioners, which is a great advance to avoid, especially the men who don't pay for pension, can be able to have public work and be able to have public services. That has allowed also to know a situation that is very important, and also the change of sex that is separated, feminine and masculine. The general panorama of the recognition of gender identity is something obligatory. We have more than less than 0.05, which is part of the national policy of having a coverage that gives us opportunity and this legal recognition of identity of gender that is part of the people. Also to mention that in this order of ideas, this CRVS has a vision that is cultural, to be able to include everyone, the capacity of being represented, their rights, and also the coverage of care for children and adolescents, and also for the older people. And also it's part of what our civil registry does in our country. This is also an example in the Latin American area, because we have noticed the response when the court made a dictamen. In this context, we are part of the fulfillment of this line of action. Just to go finishing, I'll just also mention we have some of the countries that allow change of name and gender: Argentina, Uruguay, Colombia, and Brazil, which are also part of this strategy. And that has allowed us to joint work in America Latina. And we want to have the legislation for each country where Class C has a very important role. We also have countries in the screen, countries that allows the change of name and gender, and that evidently are part of this strategy that I mentioned. Also countries that allow the change of name and gender: Nicaragua, Panama, and the one that was mentioned, and also the ones that don't have legal recognition. We have Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, Dominican Republic, where they don't have a legal procedures. It's a topic that is being developed. We want to thank the possibility of being able to connect, and we are very available as the Latin American Council and the Caribbean of CRVS from this capital to be able to work more jointly with all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Marquez, for the summary from Latin America. Now we move to Asia Pacific. Insights from Asia Pacific, CRVS Decade. Mr. Mali and Nadakusa, right? Is that right? Principal Statistician, Fiji Bureau of Statistics, and representative of the Regional Steering Group of for CRVS in Asia and the Pacific. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's It's a pleasure to share lessons from the Asia-Pacific region's journey in strengthening the civil registration and vital statistics, or CRVS, over the past decade. The Asia-Pacific CRVS decade began in 2015 and has transformed how governments record vital events, produce vital statistics, and use this data for governance and development. I'll walk you through the progress made, the challenges that remain, and what we've learned that may be relevant for your own regional and national initiatives. UNESCAP is the regional UN Commission for the Asia and the Pacific region. It has a regional hub which promotes cooperation among countries to achieve inclusive and sustainable development. It has 53 member states and 9 associate members, which you can see on the green on this map. ESCAP conducts research and analysis, policy advisory services, capacity building, and technical assistance to governments and an intergovernmental platform. In 2014, countries came together in the first ministerial conference and declared their vision that by 2024, everyone in Asia and the Pacific would benefit from universal and responsive CRVS systems. The regional ambition of the decade, these visions, as you can see, rests on the 3 goals. The first one, which is universal registration of births, deaths, and other vital events. Secondly, on the legal documentation of all individuals, enabling them to claim rights and services. Thirdly, accurate, complete, and timely vital statistics for policy and planning. The shared framework provided a regional structure, but progress depended on the strong national leadership and coordination. A lesson we'll return to you later. The goals and targets of the Regional Action Framework, after measurable outcomes that reflect progress towards the achievement of the shared vision that during the course of the decade, associated with 3 goals and 15 targets, member and associate members set their own national target value for each target based on their ambition and capacity. In addition, 8 implementation steps. As you can see, the coordination mechanism, the comprehensive assessment, national target set, the monitoring and reporting plan, inequality assessment, national strategy developed, the focal point assigned, and the reporting back to ESCAP. So these 8 steps, seen as necessary as having in place to achieve a fully functional and universal CRVS system, were identified and reported against agreements in the region in which member countries have agreed. So far, have we come? And this slide shows the milestones for the Asia and the Pacific CRVS decade. The process began in 2015 with countries submitting baseline reports, followed by a midterm review in 2020. Now we have the latest 2024 review conducted this year. The 2024 review saw 50 countries participate. This was truly a regional effort. The findings were consolidated into a synthesis report that became the evidence base for ministerial discussions in 2025. This approach, combining national self-assessment, regional synthesis, and ministerial endorsement, which helped ensure that technical progress translated into sustained political commitment. I will share with you some of the results of the report so that you can see the progress which has been made. This slide shows one of the most striking results of the decade. Between 2012 and 2024, the number of unregistered children under 5 dropped from 135 million to 51 million, a reduction of 62%. This means tens of millions of more children now have proof of identity and access to health, education, and social protection. The achievement reflects years of advocacy, simplification of procedures, outreach to rural and marginalized areas, and investment in digital systems. Yet, 51 million unregistered children remain, reminding us that reaching the last mile is the hardest part. By 2024, 29 countries had achieved over 90% birth registration within 1 year, and 30 countries reached that level for death registration. That's an increase of 13 countries since 2015 for both indicators. 42 countries now record causes of death using international standards of ICD-10 or 11. Which is a key foundation for public health planning. 36 countries regularly publish a complete and timely vital statistics report, up from 12 a decade ago. And more than 30 countries now publish summary tabulations of births, deaths, and causes of death. So these figures show real measurable progress, not only in the registration completeness, but also in the data use and transparency. Beyond completeness, the decade emphasized resilience to what we know will be the challenges down the line. Most countries now enable online registration of vital events and recognize CRVS as an essential service during crises such as COVID-19. Many have improved data management, for example, linking CRVS databases with health or population registers, adopting a data protection policies and ensuring off-site backups. These are not high-cost interventions, but organizational reforms that ensure continuity and data integrity, lessons that could be readily adapted in other regions. So another key focus was inclusion. Countries have increasingly allowed registrations of non-citizens, made services more accessible for persons with disabilities. Several have removed fees for timely registration of births and deaths. These measures help close for remaining equity gaps, showing the administrative flexibility and community engagement can be as powerful as technology. Inclusion became a defining feature of the decade and an area where regional peer learning proved especially valuable. The headline is progress, but progress with unevenness. While most countries improve coverage, some have stagnated or even regressed. About 14 million children still reach their first birthday unregistered, and 8.5 million deaths go unrecorded annually. 1/3 of deaths are medically certified, meaning we often don't know the cause of mortality, a major gap for health planning. Yet nearly all countries now produce vital statistics reports from registration data. So the decade above all proved that coordinated investment and clear accountability mechanism deliver measurable results. So here, the ministerial conference that was held in Bangkok this year in June, which gathered over 400 delegates from 44 countries, including 21 ministers or deputy ministers. The key outcome was the ministerial declaration on a decade of action for inclusive and resilient CRVS adopted unanimously. Ministers requested ESCAP to conduct another review in 2030 and to establish a new regional steering group to guide implementation. So the conference also showcased innovative and country experience from digital platforms to gender-responsive reforms, underscoring the region's collaborative spirit. Now into the regional CRVS governance. Governance underpinned everything. We have three main bodies that govern the CRVS decade: the regional steering group, the CRVS partnership, and the national focal points, as you can see. For the regional steering group, it operates under formal terms of reference endorsed by ESCAP's commission. Membership balances national and partner representation, as well as sub-regional and sectorial diversity, bringing together statisticians, health officials, and registrars. The new group for 2026 to 2030 will maintain this balance, but also integrate perspectives on gender equality, digital governance, and resilience. Having such an intergovernmental body has been key to maintaining momentum between ministerial meetings, something we recommend to any region considering a long-term CRVS initiative. The key achievements of the regional steering group has really had some key roles. It guided the development of the regional action framework, including agreeing on the goals and measurable targets that countries use to report progress, creating a common language to reform. The RSG also coordinated development partners, helping align their support and focus on priority areas such as training, digitalization, and data use. It led the regional reviews, both baseline and midterm, ensuring the process remained country-driven and evidence-based. Beyond monitoring, the group created a community of practice by facilitating peer-to-peer learning, countries learning directly from each other's experience. Finally, it oversaw the organization of the ministerial conferences, including shaping the ministerial declarations and agendas. So this kind of structured regional leadership has been crucial in maintaining consistency, focus, and accountability. So the regional CRVS partnership, then we have the CRVS partnership, which is more informal and open to all partners. Many partners, UNICEF, WHO, UNFPA, UNHCR, Vital Strategies, and others align their support through this structure, reducing duplication and amplifying impact. In essence, the region created a community of practice that connected policy, data, and implementation. And they meet 4 times in a year. From regional to national CRVS governance, at the national level, coordination mechanisms are critical. CRVS involves multiple ministries, typically Home Affairs, Health, Justice, and Statistics. So without a clear coordination platform, efforts easily become fragmented. Countries with an active National CRVS Committee or Task Force report faster progress, fewer data discrepancies, and greater public awareness. Even countries with mature systems maintain such bodies to continuously improve data quality and respond to new challenges like digital identity or migration. CRVS is a cross-cutting issue by nature, involving a wide variety of ministries and agencies at the national, provincial, and municipal levels. So this diversity of institutions requires a clear division of responsibilities and effective coordination to ensure a cohesive system. The coordination and alignment of activities is needed across local, national, sub-regional, or regional levels, as well as among development partners.
Mr. Mayor,
I'm running off. Sure. So the establishment of a national coordination mechanism will help share information more effectively and facilitate in the implementation or benefiting the entire system. It is essential for a successful national assessment and the subsequent development of a national comprehensive multi-sectoral strategy. So therefore, it is often the priority of countries trying to improve their system, and moreover, some countries with well-functioning systems still have working groups to ensure the ongoing discussion on data discrepancies, changing policies, and etc. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the interesting presentation on the progress on inclusion and the governance and the technical advancement as well. Now we move to the Arab states. Dr. Abir Nasser Ali Jalahambra, Director, Statistics Division, League of Arab States, also joining us virtually, I think.
It's not here, so let's move to shoot.
Okay, it's coming. Okay, thank you.
Your Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honor to speak to you virtually today on behalf of the League of Arab States at this fourth Global CRVS and Gender Symposium. I bring warm greetings from the Secretary General of the League of Arab States and from the
I think the sound is coming through.
government of the Arab region. Your Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honor to speak to you virtually today on behalf of
the volume is not coming
at
through.
this fourth Global CRVS. Your Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honor to speak to you virtually today on behalf of the League of Arab States at this fourth Global CRVS and Gender Symposium.
I don't think we can hear anything, right? Can we move on to the next one and then you can... So we're going to move on to the next presentation, and I think next is Annette, Ms. Annette Forsingdal, Consultant, Global Financing Facility and Women, Children and Adolescents World Bank Group. I think, Annette, you're going to be speaking about the e-learning courses on CRVS? Yes? Okay. Okay, good, thank you.
Human rights, identity, and citizenship.
Press. Okay. Good morning, everybody. I'm here to speak a little bit to the new updated e-learning course from the World Bank. And I just got two questions before I start my presentation. How many of you know about the World Bank's e-learning course? CRVS e-learning course. Okay, thank you. And how many has actually taken the World Bank's CRVS e-learning course? Okay, that's not many. So I'm very happy to say that we have now updated the e-learning course, and it's now available on the World Bank's open learning platform, and it's free. So How do I move? Okay. Oh, I don't know. My presentation is not up. So for the past 2 years, the World Bank and the Global Financing Facility has evaluated the use and the usefulness of the e-learning course that was first launched in 2017 together with the global community on civil registration. So the aim of this course is really aiming providing very practical and practical approaches to how to build civil registration systems. And it's aiming for CRVS practitioners. So in the new course, or the updated course, you will see new tools, new contents, new country cases, and we have also put a much stronger focus on gender, and gender has been mainstreamed throughout the course. So there's 2 parts. Okay, here it is. Oh, this is not my present. Okay. This is the wrong presentation. This is an old presentation. Just take it off. This is a presentation from the launch in Asia. But so I have a much shorter presentation. Anyway, so there's kind of 2 parts to the e-learning course. The first one is the basic course. This course has like 3 modules, and it basically speaks to the importance and the function of the civil registration systems. It processes bottlenecks and strategies, how to improve it. It also speaks about the institutional arrangements, and then of course also what is very important, the interoperability with other systems, including the population registry and ID system. This has always been self-paced, and it's been updated. So previously there was an advanced course, and this advanced course you had to enroll for, and it was only offered a couple times of years. This course has now been made into a self-paced course. We call it the intermediate course, and it will only have you, in order to get a certificate, you will have to take Module 5 and 6 on birth and birth registration and adoption, and registration of death and cause of death. That's the only compulsory modules that we have to take, and then you yourself can select which of the other modules that is relevant to you. So you can see that basically all aspects of civil registration and vital statistic systems and how to improve them has been included here. And some of them are much more comprehensive than the previous course, specifically, for example, Module 4, that gives you a complete kind of approach how to evaluate your legal framework to international standards. Okay, so as part of the assessment we did, we have been looking at the enrollment and the completion. So it's just to tell you that we have had large success with this course, and almost 4,000 people have taken the basic course, most of them has actually been from Africa. The advanced course was taken by a little bit more than 4,000 people, but of course now being a self-paced course, we hope that more people will actually enroll for it. So we have also had very high user satisfaction of it, scoring very close to 10 out of 10. One of the things that I really want to say is like, I want to put focus on is like, one of the questions we asked was if people applied the knowledge from the course to their daily work, and 85% answered yes. Another thing that I would like to point to is that very few people have actually access to CRVS learning, and out of all the people who answers to our evaluation said, almost 45% said that this was the only training that they had access to or have ever been part of. Yeah, As said, now we have three. We have the basic course, we've got the intermediate course that builds on the basic course. You would need to take the basic course in order to move on to your intermediate course. And we also hope that the advanced course will be offered again, which will be facilitated with instructors. And then I would like to thank you, all the different partners that has been part of evaluating and updating this course. Many partners has read through endless pages of course material, and without the partners we wouldn't have been able to launch this e-learning course. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Annette, for sharing these updates on this global course. Really impressive, and that it is available now and even in an improved format. That's really wonderful. Is the presentation from the Arab state ready or not yet? Not yet. Okay. So we're going to move to a dear friend, Ms. Jadia Badia, who is the Managing Director for Open Data Watch. She's going to be speaking to us about financing and funding CRVS systems, scale up in a changing world. Thank you very much in advance.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Montasser. I'm sorry I'm so short. I don't see some of you. I know it's been a long day and lots of information. I'm just going to focus a little bit on very important aspects of financing for CRVS. And this is one of the themes of this. It's one of the themes of this symposium. And I must say it has been a theme in all the symposium that we've had. But this time we really done a lot of work. And one of the background papers that I highly recommend on the website takes you through the details of this work that we have done, State of Financing for CRVS System. And I wanted to thank some of you that we have interviewed and are in the room for this work. So this would take maybe half a day of presenting to you. So I'm trying to do it in just a few minutes. So I take you to some of the highlights of what we have found in this paper. But I really highly recommend that you just go through it. It's a very extensive executive summary that gives you all the big messages in the report. I cannot take you through all that. It's really a rich number of things to read and find out, and it's nicely written, much better than the way I can present it. So please do take a look at that report. First of all, on the context, I just don't want to spend too much time. There's been a discussion on the context that we are in. We know that financing is going down. Many countries are moving funding from development to defense, from one D to another D. And you know who they are. So there is a lot of movement in terms of the funding for development and funding for data. And of course, we know all the pushbacks that we're getting. There's a lot of discussions around that. So the whole sort of ecosystem is changing. And I like, the term crisis sometimes really wakes us up. So I think if you put all those things together, we are in a crisis situation. So we should look at that financing as part of that. But let me take you through some of the big messages of the report and kind of give it back to you. I promise I will be short. First of all, assessing the funding, we wanted to sort of look at who are what's the current reality of the funding. So we have calculated the funding, external funding for CRVS building, because CRVS, many of the countries are still very dependent on the international financing. So there's some are moving more to domestic. Some countries like Philippines have moved 100%. Some countries like Rwanda are making advancement in domestic financing for CRVS. But most of the countries are still very dependent on ODA, official development assistance, and other form of financing. So what would be what is happening right now. So our calculation shows that about 500 million total disbursement has been going for CRVS between 2015 and 2030. That comes out to around 56 million. But when we look at the gap and how much we really need, we need almost like 4 times as much, about 250 million a year that's needed for us to sustain some of the activities that we've been talking about globally. And this is now, we lost the screen, but I keep on talking. And so this is now against the backdrop. The official development assistance in 2024 actually went down by 7%, and the outlook for 2025 is even worse, is 17% going down. So how do we actually fill those gaps? And by the way, I wanted to mention that the gap looks very large, but if you look at the salary of some of the billionaires, this is like 1 week of salary of somebody we know, all of us, someone must drive his car even. So it's really crucial for us to see that the magnitude is high, but the impact that this money will have is even higher. So we've seen some increases, by the way, in some areas and some regions in the recent years, but overall we still have this chronic underfunding for CRVS. The other situation that we have is we have very few donors, and I'll tell you who they are, but we also have very few projects. So the donors pool is very small, but also the projects, the number of projects, like 47% of the financing in 2015-2023 went to only 5 projects. So you see that there are big lumpy projects for one country, but other countries maybe are still suffering. So there's uneven coverage. So we've been monitoring how much money goes to different stages of CRVS financing, and we see that birth registration benefits, but maybe death registration not as much. And then there are also big data gaps. It's very important for us to understand what's going on, but the data gaps are huge. So the next slide is I wanted to show you of who is funding CRVS. So we have the funding is broken down by bilaterals, multilaterals, philanthropical, and private sector. And bilaterals, of course, on top of the list is, thank you, Canada, and Norway, Italy, Germany, and EU. And the multilaterals, of course, you could have guessed that, is IDA, which is a big funding, and then also Inter-American Development Bank is doing very well in funding CRVS, and the Global Financial Facility, GFF, thank you, ID4D initiatives, and Global Fund. On the philanthropical side, of course, Bloomberg, thank you, Jennifer, is the winner of financing for CRVS, but looking really at data for health initiative. And the Gates Foundation is coming in and doing more also on the health side. But it's really an untapped source for us, Gates. So if we can really get to understanding more of what they need, maybe they can contribute much more. On the private sector, our report talks about how we can get more out of the private sector. It's minimal right now, but the potential for getting more is really amazing. So next slide, I wanted to just very quickly take you through some of the challenges. I wouldn't debate too much. I know you can feel those challenges from where you sit and what we've been talking about, the ecosystem challenges for isolating, and also partnership, donor, and data challenges. I would not go through this slide, but this would basically give you some actions and how we can get to some results. But my last slide is to just what I call a road ahead. I think this work that we have done with UNFPA is showing us that we really need to set our goal going forward in a few areas. One is we need the shift from being project-based to much more integrated, multi-year financing. The second thing is we need to understand more of this data and reporting to be able to follow the money and sort of see where things are not getting done or left behind. Working with governments to ensure that we have stronger domestic resource mobilization, and of course, integrating CRVS with the legal identity, DPI, and gender equity agenda that would be discussed much more in this forum. Finally, back to the report, please take a look at this report, and here is the QR code for it, and any feedback that you have for me, would really appreciate that. We want to keep financing for CRVS on the agenda for discussions, not among only the technical people, but raise it at the political level and raise it at the donor level. So anything you could do for us to get this message across, that would be highly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It's really a great summary of the presentation and of a really, really thorough report. So I encourage you all to read the report. Yes, absolutely, and read my blog. The Arab states presentation, please. Thank you.
Your Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honor to speak to you virtually today on behalf of the League of Arab States at this fourth Global CRVS and Gender Symposium. I bring warm greeting from the Secretary General of the League of Arab States and from the people and government of the Arab region. We are gathered here because we all believe that every person deserves to be recognized, protected, and treated with dignity through strong and inclusive civil registration and feature statistics CRVS. Civil registration and feature statistics are the bedrock of human rights, identity, and citizenship. Recognizing this, the League of Arab States has shown its commitment through the Arab Declaration on Belonging and Legal Identity. This declaration focuses on protecting children's rights by calling for stronger system to register them and ensure they can have a nationality. In doing so, we support the United Nations Legal Identity Agenda, which promotes complete and lifelong approach to legal identity for everyone. A birth certificate gives a child the legal right to exist. A marriage certificate protects women's right to inheritance and security. A death certification helps family find closure and seek justice. These simple papers carry deep meaning. They show that the state recognizes a person's life and their place in society. When women and girls are not registered, they are often left out. They may lose access to education, social support, inheritance, and even personal safety. When CRVS systems do not work properly, it's not mean an administrative problem. It's a moral failure that denies millions of women and girls their basic rights. The League of Arab States, together with our partner, UNFPA, ESQA, UN Women, UNHCR, IOM, WHO, and other UN agencies, has made civil registration and gender equality a key part of our social development work. Through the strategic framework for improving CRVS system in the Arab region 2021-2025. Arab countries have committed to building a stronger institution using digital technology and making CRVS system more inclusive for everyone. Across the Arab region, there is strong dedication to achieving complete civil registration. However, progress differs from one country to another. Looking at birth and death registration as measure of how well CRVS system work, we can see large difference. While 15 countries have reached over 19% coverage for birth registration, only about half that number have achieved the same level for death registration. The situation for marriage and divorce registration is even more mixed. According to a recent ESCWA survey among 19 Arab countries, only 6 had checked how complete their marriage and divorce record were during the past 3 years, compared to 10 countries had done similar review for birth and death registration. Digital transformation is creating opportunity to modernize CRVS system. Today, most Arab countries have legal or strategic plans for digitizing CRVS, and many have already started using national database and electronic system. Birth and death registration are the most advanced in this digital shift, while marriage and divorce registration still need more progress. Integration with the health sector is improving. Several countries now have almost complete electronic reporting from hospitals and health facilities. However, registration at the community level and cause of death reporting remain weak area. Some countries show strong example of progress. The United Arab Emirates has a fully digital and connecting CRVS system linked to the national ID platform. Morocco has made birth registration part of its national social protection strategy. Jordan has developed advanced electronic registration services. Egypt has expanded access through smart registry offices and online platforms, including the digital registration of marriage and divorce. Tunisia continues to digitize virtual records, though marriage and divorce registration still need improvement. These examples show the great potential across the Arab region to make CRVS system more efficient and inclusive, not only for better administrative, but also to protect human rights and produce visual statistics that guide national development. Despite this clear progress, many challenges still remain in countries affected by conflict. Civil registration systems have been badly damaged because of displacement and the destruction of infrastructure. In some countries, the lack of accurate cause of death data make it difficult to plan effective health policy, including those aimed at reducing preventable material death. Another challenge is poor coordination among different national institutions, such as the Minister of Health, Interior and Statistics, which limit the sharing and use of data. Understanding that coordination is essential for a strong CRVS system, the League of Arab States held an expert group meeting just last week. The goal was to develop ways to make better use of existing capacity and to support countries that are still building or improving their CRVS systems so that the region can fully benefit from the power of CRVS. As the collective voice of 22 member states, the League of Arab States remained fully committed to encourage all countries in our region to build CRVS systems that are universal, fair to both women and men, based on human rights, and able to guide us toward inclusive, and sustainable development. To speed up this important work, we are preparing to present a new Arab region CRVS initiative to the Arab ministers for their consideration at the highest intergovernment level. This initiative will serve as our engine for progress, helping to mobilize the technical and financial resource needed to strengthen and harmonize CRVS system, and to ensure that every person's right to a legal identity become not only a promise but a lived reality. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the Dr. Abir, the voice from the Arab states, for the highlights from that region. We have covered pretty much all the regions in the world. We have seen there is much progress, but there's also many challenges which our panelists have brought up, which also continue to connect to the challenges that were discussed this morning at the opening sessions. Those will continue to be topics for the next 2 days and hopefully for the work yet to come. I know we're behind schedule already, so I will just encourage you, if you have questions, comments, please connect with the panelists who are here in the room, and they'll be around for the next 3 days to discuss any questions or comments you might have. Thank you very much for our panelists, and thank you for our participants here and online. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Let's appreciate Dr. Montasa for that amazing panel moderation. And let's appreciate our visitors, our panelists, even as they have their seats. So like he mentioned, we are really way behind time. So we are going to meet in the next session. We're going on a short break. It's 12:11 p.m. East African time. Let me include the time zone there. We are coming back at exactly 12:20 East African time. Please feel free to go ahead and grab your coffee and beverage real quick and snack. But before that, we're going to have a group photo. So I'll kindly welcome all of us to go downstairs. The nice area with the red carpet, that's where we're going to take our group photo. Immediately after that, kindly come back because we start our next session at 12:21 latest. Over to you.
Thank you, Charity. Good afternoon. Priscilla here. I'm the Chief of Data, Population and Development. And I welcome you to Nairobi. Nairobi is my home too. I'm Kenyan. I'm Jambo, Karibuni, and Asante Sana. So I'm standing here with this team between you and lunch. And therefore, I'm counting on my team here, excellent team, to make us go for lunch at 1:15. So please pick the key messages that you'd like the audience to go with. We know you have a wealth of information, but we are also going to make and avail all the presentations where people can dig deeper and also have a conversation with you. Please, that is my plea. I would really like you to cut short on this. Each of you will have 5 minutes, and that is it. Pick whatever you want to convey during this, because we are trying to catch up with time, and let's all work together on that. I'm not sure whether Anu, our colleague from WHO, is a recording or a presentation. A recording, and I hope it's 5 minutes.
Good morning.
So the first one that we shall look at, as Charity has already mentioned, this is a session looking at what are we trying to understand about CRVS systems, what are some of the issues we are trying to pick up in order to respond, because whenever we collect information, hopefully we are collecting it to make an intervention. And we are collecting it because we don't know something that we want to understand, so we know where the gaps are. And a number of tools have been developed across partners and across levels that are either capturing similar things or dissimilar things, and would like to hear from them what is this tool about, what is it capturing, how is it gender sensitive, what are the strengths and the weaknesses, and what is the application so far. We don't want to know the results. Where have you used the tool, and what is the plan going forward? So that we can understand why do we have like 20 tools instead of 1 or 2, and where can we find alignment, and how will that be done? Hopefully after this discussion and by the end of Friday, we shall have come up with some answers. Over to you, Anu from WHO, who will take us through the SCORE tool.
And thank you. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, colleagues. And thank you for the invitations to us to present the SCORE assessment tool for health data system and capacity in countries. My name is Ainchus, and I'm coordinating the work around the SCORE assessment and its related technical documents to support countries to strengthen the health information system under the name of the SCORE for Health Data Technical Package. And today I'm going to work with you through the SCORE assessment tool as part of the SCORE for Health Data package. So let me start with a quick overview of what SCORE is about. So the SCORE in total is a concept of the conceptual framework for health information systems. It covers 5 essential key interventions under the 5 abbreviations for survey, count, optimize, review, and enable. For the survey, we wanted to look at the population-based survey, the surveillance for public health risk, as well as the census. On the count, very much on the CRVS system, we count birth deaths, registrations, and causes of death, as well as looking at the system behind that and see the maturity level. For Optimize, we look at the capacity in the country of facility and community health data to serve the health service, including the data on the health financing and the healthcare workforce. We are very much looking at the review and the use of the data for review performance and progress, the capacity of the country to conduct this review and analysis. And finally, which is E, the effective enable data use and the data system to serve the purpose of the health information system. This including the data governance and the digitalization of the So what is included in the SCORE assessment framework? It's included 5 key essential interventions as mentioned earlier, but we also, under each of that, we have 12 key elements that that belong to the 5 key essential interventions, and with that is 32 indicators that shape the framework. And underneath of the indicator, we also have attributes and maturity measurements to serve the purpose of assessing the capacity in the countries. And where is inequity and equity analysis coming in here? All the dimensions of inequity, including the gender inequities, is included throughout the whole components of the SCORE assessment. It look at, is it included in the data collection? Is it included in the data analysis? Is it included in the data products? And we very much use the inequity framework by WHO as the standard measurement for that, which means gender inequity is included. In CRVS, we also include the causes of death and the quality of the cause of death, as well as to look at what are available in the global mortality database and what is reported and recorded and collected in the country. And what comes with the assessment, which is we do the assessment, we have the result, but what happened afterwards? So what we would like the country and partners who work together to support the country is to use the result of the assessment and bring it in the key intervention. So we also have the conceptual framework document. We have the tool and standard, which is a set of available resources by all different partners, WHO at the global and regional level, to serve it as a resources for country if they want to prioritize and improve or strengthen any areas in the health information system based on the SCORE framework. We also going to document all the documents related to the assessment instruments, that mean including the data, the questionnaire for the assessment, which is about 600 of them, as well as the guidance for how to conduct it in the country, the metadata for each of the questions, and the online data collection tools, which we hope is going to be continuously to be the monitoring tool where country can continue to submit the data into the database. And we also plan to look further into the data that collected through the assessment and go for further reporting on different specific area of the health information system, as well as in different regions, depending on the needs by the region, by country, and by partners. So here are some of the few essential products that SCORE technical package can provide, apart from the assessment, which is going to be used as the baseline, as the platform for countries who find area that they need further work to strengthen the health information system. But it's also the way the SCORE assessment is conducted enable a dialogue between country and region and global partners in terms of the standards of data, but also strengthen the ownership of the country for their own health information systems. We also support countries to see how they can use those data for informing actions and planning and policy, and align all the standards that has been reported. So, as all the assessment tools, there are unique aspects of the SCORE assessment tool, but also some limitation. On One Health, the SCORE is one of the most comprehensive assessment tool on health data so far. It has also an end-to-end solution for data collection, data use, and dissemination of the data products. On the other hand, it is complex, it's labor-intensive. It requires a strong ownership and leadership from the country to coordinate with relevant stakeholders in the country to complete the assessment. We also requires a lot of support, and actually the regional teams are the team that's on the driver's seats and drive the entire data collection process for this assessment. The data quality can be challenges due to the fact that it's submitted by the country, but then we also have a validation, external review and validation process to act on that and to mitigate the challenge of the data quality. So what we have done so far, in round one, which was conducted in 2018 to cover the period of 2013 to 2018, the report was published in 2021. For round two, we just finished the data collections and we are now in the data analysis process, and it covered the period of 2018 to 2024. We plan to publish the report and all the documents and the product related to that in 2026, the first quarter. So far, we have 150 countries and territories. That means about 142 member states that participated. Out of that, it's 124 countries that have participated in both round one and round two. And for that, we will also be able to look at and see the progress that's been made between the two rounds, and hopefully also to see what are the changes and what drive these changes. So that will be the future, what we are planning to do. For the 2026, very much of that would be how we work together supporting countries to use the SCORE assessment. And from next year, it will be how we can use the result of the SCORE assessment to shape the agenda for health information system strengthening. And we also plan to make the whole tool to be a monitoring tool. For WHO would be the monitoring based on the global program of work, GPW14, but also we hope that region partners and country would be able to use this as a way of check up on where we are in terms of the health information systems and how we can strengthen it in order to support country and to enable the monitoring of the UHC and SDGs targets. And here's an example of what will be the product for the country score assessment profile. We're trying as much as possible to reflect what has been answered or responded from the country to the questionnaires, and then to include the analysis and the measurements of the maturity in that, hoping that this would be the basic document for the country to use for the future data, identify gaps and identify priority for country to strengthen the health information system, but also that will be something that partners can look into that and support countries so that we will have a one common goal is to support the country's strengthen data systems. I believe that my colleague from the country office also attending the meeting, Dr. Leonard Kosma, so he would be able to further elaborate of how this process has been done in the country. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anchu, for taking us through that health sector, particularly health sector assessment tool, and she's outlined several components of the tool, and I hope that those who have applied it have found some usefulness in it. So next will be our colleague from ESCAP, who will be looking at the ESCAP CRVS Inequality Assessment Tool, Ms. Tanya Segison, I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, from the Economic Commission, Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific. Tanya, over to you.
Thank you very much. It's hard to follow Anne, but I'll try. Can I get some? I have slides, which I would love to see, if I can. Anyway, otherwise I'll just wing it. Do I have slides? Point at who? Yeah, that doesn't look right. Okay, there we go. Let me just go back. Okay, so I'm going to talk about CRVS inequality assessments, and it's not really a tool, but I'll go into a little bit more details about that. But first, I just want to highlight this beautiful birth certificate that Melly also mentioned, which is basically the foundation of the agreements in Asia and the Pacific on CRVS. The birth certificate is in front of my office, and many of you have seen it live. And we have these agreements in Asia Pacific of the 3 overarching goals. And in order to support that, countries also committed to this set of implementation steps that Melly also mentioned. And one of them is to conduct an inequality assessment. So this was agreed back in 2014. And then when we did the midterm evaluation in 2019, we realized that basically no countries had done it, or very few had done it, because they didn't really know how to. Of course, for us, as everyone in the room here, inequality and inclusivity is really, really important. For us, what it means in the context of CRVS is, of course, ensuring everyone has a legal identity with what that entails of access to services and so on. But it's also about the statistics that we can produce when we have inclusive systems. So this is kind of the foundation for why we really wanted to focus on inclusivity. I'm sure we will focus a lot on this week. Who are the ones who might be excluded and why? There's many different layers and reasons to that. And the reality is that it is extremely country specific and very contextual. And this is also one of the reasons that when I say it's not really a tool, because we have adapted the methodology very significantly in each country we have worked in. But what we really want to try and look at is what are the characteristics of the people who are excluded, why, and also try to look at intersectionality. So when we, what we try to do is to look at multiple data sources and thereby create more in-depth analysis. So when we realized back in 2019 that countries hadn't done this, we were like, well, what do we do then? How do we start this work? And we started off with some online webinars trying to kind of get an idea of what were the things that had already happened. There was some qualitative work that had happened. There was some quantitative assessments and so on. So we had a few webinars. They are online somewhere, so you can have a look if you want. And then we had a great demographer developing a guidance on assessing completeness. It's not a tool. It's really just a guidance on what does completeness mean and what are the kind of potential data sources that can be used. So what we've then done from that is starting to assist countries in conducting these inequality assessments. And it very much depends on the data availability. We use only secondary data. We don't actually collect new data, so we're using existing data sources. So of course that means that we're very dependent on what is available in each country. And also, of course, the policy priorities in the countries have to be taken into account when we do these assessments. We've had many more webinars along this topic, so we have these Stats Cafe series. Many of you have probably spoken on them on various topics, but CRVS and inequality is one of the topics that we've had on there several times. Okay, so just a little bit on what we actually do for the inequality assessments. We work very closely with the country to first assess what are the potential data availability. Ideally, we would like to work with the civil registration data itself, with health data. Some countries that have censuses that might have useful data on these topics. In some countries, we've been using MIX and DHS. You know, it really depends on what is available. And that also means the depth of the analysis is very different in different countries, depending on what is available. We have finalized work in 5 countries so far, and Fiji is one of them. Meli is here. He was really instrumental in this work. Indonesia is also here. They've also done a fantastic assessment and probably one of the most in-depth assessments we have done. We worked in Samoa, Bhutan, Laos, and we're currently working in a number of other countries. And there are some beautiful reports on our website if you want to look into them in more details, so I'm not going to spend lots of time on them. One of them is from Fiji, and I'm just highlighting a few results from Fiji because Meli is the expert, so if you have any question to this, go to Meli. One of the really key findings, and I think this is extremely relevant and interesting from a policy perspective, was that there was a parental assistance payment program, and you see the peak, right? It is so obvious. We need incentives for birth registration. And this is like, if you ever need evidence of why we need incentives, here you go, right? You're all a bunch of statisticians, so I don't need to explain the graph for you. I'm sure you can read that yourself. And also, what we really want to do with these assessments is not just, doing the assessment and leaving it and disappearing. We really want to make sure that it has policy implications. And I mean, in Fiji, we worked on some policy briefs together. We had dissemination work, and it led into further work on business process mapping, and also some kind of technical changes in the birth registration form and so on. But it's not just only about births, and we already heard that several times, so we also look at death registration. This is also from Fiji, looking at the timeliness of death registration, and you can see that there has been significant improvements over the years, which is fantastic, thanks to Meli and his colleagues. But unfortunately, what we also see in Fiji is that we still have gender disparities. And this is really one of the key aspects that we look at in all the countries is, of course, gender. And for most of the countries in Asia Pacific, birth registration rates are more or less the same, but death registration rates are significantly different. So what we're trying to do is dig further into this. And just in the interest of time, so in SCAP and our work in general, we have a lot of focusing on inclusivity. It was also mentioned in Meli's presentation. We try to support countries. We try to assess what is actually already been done. And this graph here was also, this figure was also shown by Meli to try and get an overview of the activities that are happening. I think one of the new areas that we would like to move into a little bit more is to look at disability inclusion in CRVS systems. So yes, it's not really a tool, but there's a methodology, and we really try to help countries, and we would like to help more countries as well. So I hope I stuck to time. Wow. Almost, yeah.
Excellent. I mean, she went 1 minute over time, but I think she did really well. Thank you, Tanya, for keeping us on course. And I think what I like about Tanya's presentation is it's the use of data. It's not really a tool for collecting more data, but making use of what we have. More often, we collect data when, in fact, we can use whatever is available to make decisions, and I think that's really a good example of what you have just shared with us. Next will be the ECS CRVS ID Rapid Assessment Tool, and this will be presented by my colleague William. He's the Chief of Demographic and Social Statistics at the Economic Commission for Africa. William, will you keep the prize, or will you take it away from Tanya? Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I think I should start off by saying, next slide. Oh, it's with me. First of all, I think UN legal identity agenda has been mentioned a number of times. And this was a specific project which emanated from the office of the Deputy Secretary General. She was somewhere and a presentation was made that about 1.2 billion people on earth do not have identities. And obviously, one of the things which struck her was, if we don't know who these 1.2 billion people are, then SDGs are irrelevant, because you are already living about 1 out of 8 people from the SDGs. So what I want to emphasize on is that red part. So after that realization, the UN, then it was called UN Legal Identity Expert Group, was tasked with this mandate to close the global identity gap with a benchmark of more than 300 million by 2025, which is this year, and in turn providing member states with vital statistics, demographic. So we had to think quite fast in terms of how those interventions could be made, but obviously there needed to be data, there needed to be information on that. So the rationale of it was actually that for us to proceed, we actually needed the data. And as I said previously, already CRVS, there was already work going on, but where it was lacking was actually CRVS and ID. So we actually had to think of a way of consolidating information which was already being collected on CRVS and bringing new information on ID. So now we have 3 components, CRVS and ID. So what we actually did over the period was to come up, to come up with a representation of how that could be achieved. And if I remember very well, just to come up with this diagram took almost like a year of back and forth. There was the World Bank involved, there were the co-chairs, there were 3 co-chairs, and there was the secretariat and so forth. But in the end, this was agreed. It looks very complicated, but it's actually the simplest diagram you can actually look at. On the extreme left, those are your vital events. Then the next is actually the notification. Then when notification happens for live births, deaths, and they go into a CR, database. Then you have the other vital events, marriages and so forth, which go through either courts or authorized institutions like churches. Then they feed into that. So when you have your CR, you can produce vital statistics, or you can generate your national population register and your IDs, because when you're getting IDs, you actually need the birth certificate and so forth. Then it moves to functional IDs. So it's one of the simplest. It looked complicated then, but it's actually very simple to understand how you move from your CR to your population register to your identity, to your vital statistics, and so forth. Next slide, please. So, you can jump the next, go to where it is the slide with guiding principles for the research design. So, we actually had to look at what would be the quickest way to actually, get this data to answer to the DSG's request. So, the first thing we decided on was to analyze the current situation at national and subnational levels of the CRVS. If you remember, I said CRVS we already know a few things about, and identity management of people, including migrants and other vulnerable. Assess country needs for implementation of the UN program on legal identity in consultation with the UN entities, which is the country team, the World Bank Group, and national governments and so forth. Then anticipate national and sub-national level obstacles that may affect the implementation of the program. Then agree on the way forward for the mechanism for the country to receive technical and financial support from the multi-partner trust fund. Apparently there was an idea that, and actually I think it went to fruition, that a multi-partner trust fund would be set up and countries which are implementing the UN LEA would access this. Then briefly assess CRVS and ID management measures which currently exist and what needs to be improved. Next slide. So, obviously we couldn't do it the whole world. We actually had to look at, and I should actually add in that, because the highest level of invisibility or of people who don't have identity documents are in Africa. That's how ECA got sucked in the project, because it was targeting firstly Africa. So we couldn't also do the 54 African countries, and we said, I should thank my colleagues who were there, Violet was still with me then, David, we set and did a template where we put in a number of variables, but the ones which ended up being very useful is under 5 birth registration, status of CRVS, existence of CRVS ID management plans, and so forth and so forth. So we ended up settling for 13 countries: Cameroon, Cote d'Ivoire, DRC, Kenya, Liberia, Mozambique, Sierra Leone, Zambia, Ethiopia, Guinea, Niger, and Nigeria and Senegal. I should just point out 3 countries there: DRC, Nigeria, and Ethiopia. They are the 3 largest countries in Africa, and they are also the 3 largest countries with people with no legal documents. So for us to reach that number, if you remember the 300,000, we also had to look for very big countries. If we succeed there, then our target was going to be achieved. So let me lastly just go on to what we did. Firstly, we had to do a lot of desk review, trying to look at what are the systems existing, what are the registration rates for births, deaths, and so forth. We also had to look at their laws. Are their laws still the colonial ones, if they've attempted to change them over time, and so forth? Then we actually had structured interview guides, which we had to do face-to-face. And most of them were really qualitative, because we were actually trying to identify what are the problems and how can we solve these problems so that, we can actually, recommend to these countries to use those recommendations to expedite registration. I should also say this exercise was done during the COVID. And I should say, I don't know how we managed to travel to 13 countries during the COVID, but looking back at it, it was worth it. We also had observed workflows when we go to countries. What are the workflows in terms of registration? I think in Nigeria, we actually had to look at how they were taking biometrics for infants and things like that. So we experienced quite a lot of very unique things. Then at the end of each mission, we would sit down with the UN country team and the national governments and actually go through our findings. And then they could sort of confirm what we would have found. At times there would be, contradictions or, contestations and so forth. But in the end, that's how we came up with those reports. So, just to conclude, this also was used for a specific purpose, to actually try to contribute to the UN LEA. What happened after that? Actually, a number of countries requested us to also do these assessments because most of them didn't have that linkage between CRID and VS. So because this was sort of a new approach to it, there was quite a demand for it. And, we ended up beyond the 13 countries. I think we ended up adding 5 countries. And what we also did was now extended to other UN regions. So I think ESCAP, it ended up being sort of used in ESCAP, I don't know, in Latin America and so forth. But that work we did as experimental work in the ECA region is now what is being used as an extension of the UN LEA. Thank you.
Thank you, William. Again, that was something that came up as a result of a demand and a request from our Deputy Secretary General. And we are also happy to say that UNFPA will be co-chairing the UNILEA working group, and hopefully we can achieve more together. Thank you. Tanya still holds #1 position in keeping time. And so hopefully she will continue keeping that. So the next one is on CRVS Systems Improvement Framework. And this will be by Claudia Wells from Vital Strategies. We will start, and Tanya will input as well from the Economic Commission of Asia and the Pacific. Let's see if you will pick up and hold a little bit more. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's a bit of a challenge there because we've got 2 of us on this improvement framework, and actually I was going to go to William in the panel as well, but maybe we'll need to cut that out just in the interests of time. But thank you, everyone. I'm really pleased to be able to introduce the CRVS Systems Improvement Framework. But first, let me be clear about what it's not, because I think that's quite important. It's not a global standard, and it's not a benchmark assessment tool, sort of collecting those core indicators. Instead, it's a practical guide that helps countries to assess, redesign, and continuously improve their CRVS systems. And I'll briefly walk you through the purpose and structure, where and how it's been used, and then hand over to Tanya, who's going to talk a little bit about how it's now evolving. Yeah, here we go. So the tool builds on, and here you can see on the slide, a wealth, over a decade worth of global experience, including the University of Queensland and WHO Comprehensive Assessment and Rapid Assessment Tools, and the Strategic Planning Guide from ECA. And it was co-developed through a very broad partnership led by our colleagues at ECA here. So I feel very out of place. I shouldn't be presenting it. It should be William, but I do this on your behalf. so including ECA, UNSCAP, SPC, and it was validated by country experts in 2019, with the framework being officially launched in 2021. So what is it?